Chapter 269. Waiting for Death? Who said that? All the cultivators in the minor heaven and earth looked towards the black rift hanging on the horizon. Everyone was tense as if confronting a formidable enemy. These people hid in the deepest part of the Star Sea congregation's minor heaven and earth, and the fact that Impermanence Tian could force his way in proved that many Star Sea congregation's cultivators had already perished at his hands. A figure flew out from the black rift. It was Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian was bare-chested, his hair was disheveled, and a giant python coiled around his waist, its body covered in black scales, the snake's head wrapped around his back, emerging from behind his left shoulder to look forward with him, constantly flicking its tongue. His upper body displayed a bizarre black pattern, as if some kind of emblem, making him look even more terrifying. From afar his gaze locked onto Anhao. Anhao couldn't help but frown. Impermanence Tian's mouth corner lifted in a fearsome smile. "Hurry up and form your formation. Let me see if today's Star Sea primordial unity banner is as formidable as it was back then." Impermanence Tian's voice echoed as he swung his palm, unleashing a terrifying gale that ravaged thousands of miles. One floating island after another activated their protective formations, forming circles of light, yet all the islands trembled. Great Ming Tian stood at the edge of a cliff, holding the Star Sea primordial unity banner in one hand facing the wind. He snorted coldly, raised the Star Sea primordial unity banner in his hand, and the black flag soared upward, quickly growing larger, reaching a height of 10,000 feet in the blink of an eye, casting the entire floating island into darkness. Moreover, the small flags on Great Mingshan's headband also soared into the sky, standing alongside the 10,000-foot black flag, rapidly enlarging. There were actually 12 Star Sea primordial unity banners. 12 banners. Your capabilities are decent, but this is far from enough. Impermanence Tian sneered, swinging his hand once again. This time, a dreadful blood wind surged out from the black rift behind him like a flood, unstoppable. In an instant, the terrifying blood wind collided with the 12 Star Sea primordial unity banners. The 12 10,000-foot banners trembled, countless stars on the flag surfaces burst into light, and the ocean below surged, forming a gigantic hand reaching towards Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian stepped forward, his right foot landing with such force that it shattered the oceanic giant hand below. Great Mingshan's brow furrowed, his eyes filled with dread. 8th level of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Your cultivation level is very high, but it seems you've spent most of your time on improving your cultivation level. Your mana is a bit weak. Impermanence Tian's laughter echoed through the heavens and earth, causing the faces of all Star Sea congregation's cultivators to change dramatically. Could this divine exotic ghost king be stronger than their sect hierarch? Defeat me first, then talk. Great Mingshan's voice rang out as he leaped up, spreading his arms and casting spells swiftly. The 12 Star Sea primordial unity banners whipped up fierce winds, the flag surfaces flapping loudly, and countless meteorites flew out, their momentum immense and endless, all crashing towards Impermanence Tian. In a blink, the entire ocean darkened, countless meteorites covered the sky, some crushing towards Impermanence Tian head-on, others encircling, seemingly forming a formation. Impermanence Tian stepped forward, his momentum dispersing all the incoming meteorites. With each step he took, his presence grew stronger, the strength energy swirling visible around him. His gaze fixed once more on Anhao, even sending his voice transmission. "Flame primordial treasure body, are you ready to be devoured by me? You better resist. The stronger you are, the happier I will be. The happier I am, the less pain you will endure." Hearing his voice, Anhao clenched his fists. Even though Anhao was unafraid of Impermanence Tian, he knew he was no match for him. He feared that he might drag the Star Sea congregations into this. Since he embarked on the path of immortal cultivation, though everyone acknowledged his talent, he always needed assistance from others, just like at the Supreme Sect before and now at the Star Sea congregations. He felt full of unwillingness. Why wouldn't the heavens give him time? As long as he had 1,000 years, no, just another 500 years, he was confident he could become an immortal, no longer needing anyone's protection. Having the best talent, yet needing others' protection. To him, it was such an ironic matter. Boom! A strong wind swept towards Anhao, the intense light reflected in his eyes, as the sect hierarch Great Ming Tian and Impermanence Tian had already begun their fierce battle, with all kinds of terrifying spells and divine skills shaking the floating island. Impermanence Tian fought without using a Dharma treasure, relying solely on the might of his physical body to combat the spells and divine skills of the Star Sea primordial unity banner, breaking them with sheer power. Qi Jiuxiao looked back at Hao, saying, "Hurry back, don't come out." And Hao bit his teeth, not turning around. Qi Bei spoke up, "The enemy has already come here, hiding in the hall is useless for him. Let him watch the battle." He turned his head, glancing at Hao with the corner of his eye. "Hao, watch carefully and remember the power of the ancient treasure body. Today, although many disciples died because of you, we don't regret it. Well, wait for you to grow strong. You have the talent to dominate an era, and our Star Sea congregations are willing to assist you along your path." Hearing this, Hao felt even more guilt. He was willing to repay the Star Sea congregations in the future, but he feared he wouldn't have the chance. At this moment he thought of his master. Impermanence Tian could break into the Star Sea congregations invincible. In his understanding, only his master could match him. His master had once swept across the 7 stars spirit realm. Even if unable to kill Impermanence Tian, he could certainly block his assault. But he couldn't summon his master. He didn't have the face to. His master hated trouble, yet he had already troubled his master more than once. Hao stared intently at Impermanence Tian, flames igniting on his body. His hair also transformed into flames, his entire being radiating divinity like the deity of the sun. Meanwhile, in another part of the minor heaven and earth of the Star Sea congregations, Liya, clad in black, stood at the edge of a cliff, gazing intently at the heavens, where the sky displayed a myriad of hues, ever-changing. He frowned, mumbling, "Hao." The news of Impermanence Tian coming to seize the flame primordial treasure body had spread long ago, and he had heard it too, so he could immediately guess that today's commotion was directed at Hao. Although he always lost to Hao, he didn't want Hao to die. Such a genius as Hao, if he couldn't grow up, it would be a great pity, at least that was how Liya thought. He could lose, but he couldn't live without a goal to chase. A figure appeared beside Liya. It was Shen Tianyi. Shen Tianyi, seeing Liya still there, sighed in relief and said seriously, "Don't think about helping Hao. Though your divine exotic city is powerful, you can't yet utilize its full potential. The divine exotic resentful ghost is not only targeting Hao but also you." Liya gazed at the horizon and asked, "Senior, how do you think the calamity brought by the divine exotic resentful ghost should be resolved? It's more terrifying than the demon catastrophe we faced on the mainland. Any one ghost king can force through our Star Sea congregations." Shen Tianyi was silent for a moment, then said, "Great powers will intervene. This is not for you and me to worry about." Divine exotic resentful ghost. Divine exotic city? Liya's eyes shimmered, making it hard to fathom what he was thinking. He suddenly asked, "Senior Shen, is there still no news of Zhang Buku?" Shen Tianyi shook his head, then also looked towards the horizon, his heart equally filled with worry. But what was the use of worrying? This wasn't the mainland. His status as a Mahayana cultivator meant nothing here. Boom, boom, boom. Ocean waves surged to heights of 10,000 feet, floating islands shattered, the sky filled with thunder and flames, black holes constantly appeared in all directions, and Star Sea congregations' great cultivators continuously arrived to aid Great Mingtian. Great Mingtian held the flags with both hands. His body was covered in blood, still fighting fiercely with Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian punched, and Great Mingtian crossed the flags to block, but the overpowering force still sent him retreating hundreds of miles, his hands trembling as he held the Star Sea Primordial Unity banner, bleeding from the palms. The 10 Star Sea Primordial Unity banners in the sky burst into countless lightning bolts, intertwining around Impermanence Tian. "Ah! What joy! What joy!" Impermanence Tian laughed wildly, the pain from his physical body only making him more frenzied, even boosting his momentum continuously. The ferocity in his eyes almost became tangible. His gaze once again fixed on the wrathful Hao, taunting, "Be furious, be hopeless, you can only watch as I tear them apart." His laughter echoed across the heavens and earth, drowning out all other noises. Hao was utterly enraged, wanting to rush up, but the surrounding cultivators stopped him. "You going up would only inconvenience the sect hierarch," Qi Jiuxiao said sternly, holding the dragon-slaying spear, the spearhead blocking Hao's chest. He was secretly shocked. Was this kid's life fire really so intense? Hao grabbed the dragon-slaying spear with both hands, his gaze fixed on Impermanence Tian, gritting his teeth. But what? If death is coming, let us die first." An old cultivator snorted coldly. Other great cultivators around also spoke harshly, fearless of death. No one blamed Hao, making him feel even worse. "Are we really just waiting to die? and Hao's face showed intense unwillingness, anger boiling in his heart, causing the flames on his body to burn more vigorously. Waiting to die? Who said that? A voice reached in Hao's ears, making him instinctively feel irritated. Before he could respond, the surrounding cultivators turned around as if all were startled. Qi Jiuxiao looked behind in Hao, exclaiming in surprise, "Fu, Senior, why are you here?" And Hao's body trembled upon hearing this, the flames on his body rapidly dimming. He turned his head cautiously, seeing a familiar figure walking past him and stopping ahead of him. It was none other than Guan, who had cast the 9 extremes yin-yang body. The dark purple demonic shadow struck the cultivator's eyes, except Qi Jiuxiao and Qi Bei. Others were secretly frightened. Where did this person come from? Why had they not noticed at all? And Hao came back to his senses, hurriedly said, "Master, he is one of the 9 divine exotic ghost kings, possessing the supreme treasure body of impermanence Tian He. Enough. Just an ant. Why bother introducing it to your master?" Guan said, causing all the surrounding faces to change drastically. And Hao was stunned, then relieved, a smile appearing on his face. "An ant? Such arrogant words, and who might you be?" Impermanence Tian's icy voice came, full of killing intent. Clearly, Guan had angered him. Chapter 270 Desperate Impermanence Tian. Impermanence Tian's voice made the entire world feel as if it were in an icy wasteland, and all the cultivators of the Star Sea congregations felt chills down their spines. Guan ignored Impermanence Tian and stepped forward. Under the towering Star Sea primordial unity banner, the blood-soaked Great Ming Tian turned his head, eyes full of shock. Who is this person? Impermanence Tian also stopped. Guan's dismissive attitude irritated him, and he roared angrily, suddenly transforming into a blood wind, sweeping toward Guan. In the horrifying blood wind, the head of a sea dragon emerged, giant as a mountain, seemingly capable of swallowing Guan and Hao and the others on the floating island in one bite. Everyone on the island's hearts pounded wildly, not daring to blink. Boom. The moment the blood wind and sea dragon collided with Guan, it dissipated instantly and Impermanence Tian was shaken still, losing his balance, disbelief on his face. No, Impermanence Tian said, his voice trembling. Before he could finish his words, a hand suddenly pressed on his shoulder, causing the giant python on his body to turn into blood mist with a slap. With that slap, Impermanence Tian's heart jumped fiercely, unprecedented panic engulfing him. He was horrified to find that his mana could not be mobilized, and he had lost his combat strength. "No matter where you are, I will find you and crush you to death again." Guan's voice entered Impermanence Tian's ears. As his words fell, his right hand squeezed, directly crushing Impermanence Tian's physical body. Boom! A sudden gale arose, raging across the world, blowing numerous cultivators away into the distance. Guan was not just of higher cultivation. His physique was also stronger. His whole Bodish Chi power was far beyond that of Impermanence Tian's supreme treasure body. In the instant he crushed Impermanence Tian, Guan could feel the bizarre power belonging to the divine exotic resentful ghost quickly retreating from the Star Sea congregations. It was this elusive power that continuously helped the divine exotic resentful ghost to resurrect. It retreated in a manner beyond the rules, quickly shrinking back into the sea-breaking rift. Guan followed and disappeared from where he was. The small minor heaven and earth fell into silence, even the wind sounded oppressive. Great Ming Tian floated in the air, a look of astonishment on his face, unable to recover for a long time. If even he was like this, let alone everyone else. Impermanence Tian is dead. Qi Jiuxiao exclaimed excitedly, his hand shaking as he held the dragon-slaying spear. As he opened his mouth, other cultivators began to exclaim. How is this possible? What just happened? Who was that person? To easily crush the divine exotic ghost king? He seemed to come for an Hao. With such strength, how high must his cultivation level be? His aura completely disappeared. The restrictions and formations of our Star Sea congregations were like nothing to him. More and more cultivators flew toward an Hao, including the hierarch Great Mingtian. Great Mingtian disregarded his own disheveled state. He stared at an Hao and asked, "What is your relationship with that person just now?" Under everyone's gaze, an Hao took a deep breath and said, "To be honest, he was my first master. When I was a child, he saved me from the claws of a demon and taught me immortal cultivation, leading me into the Supreme Sect. He is revered as Sword Venerable Fudao by the Supreme Sect." Sword Venerable Fudao. Everyone's faces changed once again. They had heard of the name Sword Venerable Fudao, a presence that swept through the seven-star spirit realm cave masters. If it was him, then it made sense. But who would have thought and how had such a significant background? Seeing the prowess of Sword Venerable Fudao today, they realized the destruction of the seven-star spirit realm was not unjust. If Sword Venerable Fudao wanted, it was not just those cave masters who would die but also the billions of congregants of the seven-star spirit realm. On the other side, Guan had already returned to the Supreme Sect, wandering within the outer gate city, pondering the power behind Impermanence Tian. Earlier, when he used lifespan detection on Impermanence Tian, he could only see the cultivation level, 9 layers of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, with the remaining 3 values being 0. The divine exotic resentful ghost, seeming immortal, was not truly so. At least, the divine exotic resentful ghost was not. Guan had already slain 2 divine exotic resentful ghosts and could sense the same power within them. If he could cut off the source of this power, these entities would no longer be able to resurrect. He was prepared to go to the sea-breaking rift and thoroughly resolve Impermanence Tian. Guan brought up the attribute panel, looking at his lifespan, feeling a surge of confidence. Although the sea-breaking rift was dangerous, it was not an impassable place. Guan began to anticipate the realm above carefree primordial immortal. Under the blood-colored firmament, the world dimmed. Seawater continually washed over the wasteland, as if some kind of demon was reaching out its hand. On the wasteland stood a stele, occasionally splashed by waves, which then turned into steam and dissipated. A figure appeared out of thin air in front of the stele, then fell to the ground. It was Impermanence Tian, who lay gasping for breath with terror and panic on his face. "What happened to you?" A cold voice came from within the stele, indistinguishable in gender and emotion. Impermanence Tian struggled to calm himself and gritted his teeth. "I encountered someone. His realm is definitely higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. He also said he would come find me. He wants to kill me." At the thought of what Guan had said, he shivered uncontrollably. He was arrogant to others because he was not only strong but also seemingly immortal. He felt that man could really find him. How could he not panic? How could he not be afraid? Higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal? The voice inside the stele sounded again as if in thought. Impermanence Tian stood up, gritting his teeth. "What should I do? That guy will definitely come." At this moment he was more frantic than in how had been. The longer you live, the less you want to die. First, calm down and recover. I will summon the other ghost kings. Then we'll see what he can do to eliminate you under my watchful eye. Upon hearing these words, Impermanence Tian's heart calmed slightly. But just thinking of Guan's figure made him tremble. The sensation of Guan pressing his shoulder was so despairing that he couldn't even muster the slightest anger. He only wanted to rid himself of this karma soon. News of Sword Venerable Fudao annihilating Impermanence Tian, the divine exotic ghost king, spread quickly. It was deliberately done by the Starseed congregations, partly to make people think there was a connection between them and Sword Venerable Fudao, and partly to dampen the spirits of the divine exotic resentful ghosts, giving hope to the ocean. Though the calamity caused by the divine exotic resentful ghosts was terrifying, there were always powerful beings on the ocean who could resolve it. When Guan arrived at Immortal Seeking Island, it had been only half a month since that battle. The cultivators on the island were all discussing Sword Venerable Fudao. The vast majority of cultivators were unclear about realms above loose immortal. It was precisely because they didn't understand that they worshipped Sword Venerable Fudao even more. First annihilating the 7-star spirit realm, then the divine exotic ghost king. From their understanding, Sword Venerable Fudao already had the strongest record. Guan didn't expect his fame to spread so fast, feeling secretly pleased as he listened. Because of this, he even stayed an extra ancient hour that day. Returning to Mystic Valley, he was in a very good mood. In these 7 days, he had gathered another batch of medicinal herbs, getting closer to a 30-million-year lifespan. Estimating that he would reach it in no more than 3 months, and that was without deliberately harvesting in advance. He wasn't worried about Impermanence Tian making preparations early, as he would break through before heading to the sea-breaking rift. He planned to eliminate Impermanence Tian with an even higher realm. Guan walked into the valley in high spirits. When he encountered disciples, he would chat with them with a smile, allowing them to feel his good mood. Time passed quickly. 2 months flew by. The deeds of Sword Venerable Fudao on the sea eventually reached the Supreme Sect, sparking intense discussions among the disciples. The disciples felt honored yet worried. Why had Sword Venerable Fudao gone to the sea? Guan also heard similar discussions, but he didn't mind. Putting some pressure on the Supreme Sect was a good thing. If any presumptuous individuals tried to probe, he could only accept their unexpected lives. That day at noon, Guan was playing Go with Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, surrounded by dozens of disciples and senior cultivators of the Supreme Sect. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's forehead began to sweat. Guan held the Seven Stars mirror, fanning himself. No one recognized that this mirror was the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. The Seven Stars mirror appeared slightly different from before in the Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and its power aura was completely suppressed by Guan's path of returning primordial spirit. Even Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's divine sense couldn't detect anything unusual. Standing behind Guan, Yu Yingying couldn't help but say, "Stop fanning, it's like a woman playing with a mirror. What is a big man doing with a mirror?" Hearing this, Guan immediately raised the mirror and smoothed his sideburns. Yu Yingying was so angry that she wanted to grab him. While the two were fooling around, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord felt immense pressure. Having played Go for many years, he still couldn't surpass the mountain that was Guan. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord began to be dazed, doubting himself. He had checked Guan's cultivation level several times and investigated his background secretly. Because he couldn't find out how Guan concealed great cultivation, he could only doubt himself. A figure approached, gently tapping a female disciple on the shoulder. The disciple turned and hurriedly saluted, then gave way. The visitor was Ji Xiaoyu. She wore a white dress, holding a treasure sword, exuding the demeanor of a female sword fairy. She stepped into the crowd, looking at Guan's playful behavior, and couldn't help but smile slightly. Seeing her arrival, Guan lowered the Seven Stars mirror and greeted, "Xiaoyu, why are you back so soon?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "I came home to fetch something, so naturally I returned quickly." Guan nodded without asking further questions. He stood up saying, "Elder, you ponder on it slowly." He pushed away Yu Yingying and walked out. Yu Yingying, fuming, wanted to kick him, but he skillfully dodged. How could a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator compete with a Core Formation Realm cultivator? Ji Xiaoyu followed Guan's pace, chatting as they walked. An elder smilingly stroked his beard. "Elder, how do you feel? You seem helpless." He often lost to Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, so seeing him defeated today he was naturally pleased. At the same time he was secretly amazed, wondering how his Valley Master's Go skill could be so high. No wonder it was the creator of Go. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord remained silent, staring intently at the board, continuously analyzing and studying Guan's strategy. Elsewhere, Guan glanced at Ji Xiaoyu walking beside him and asked, "Do you have something on your mind?" Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu's faint smile disappeared, becoming calm. She said, "I brought back a treasure from my family. It can detect the soul of living beings and can also discern demons. Do you want to see what your soul looks like?" Chapter 271, Primordial Karmic Body, Primordial Chaos Supreme Holy Skill. Hearing Ji Xiaoyu's words, Guan was stunned for a moment, then asked, "You came back just for this thing? Want to inspect my soul? Do you think I'm a demon?" Guan felt strange inside, not knowing how to evaluate Ji Xiaoyu's idea. Ji Xiaoyu seemed to understand his expression. She explained, "Of course it's not just this capability. If a cultivator can glimpse their own soul, they might enhance their comprehension." "I don't believe it, so I won't try." Guan waved his hand. Ji Xiaoyu moved closer and whispered, "Just try it, it won't hurt. I'm not afraid of pain, but asking me to inspect my own soul feels invasive. You don't think I'm a demon, right?" "How could that be? Even if you were a demon it wouldn't matter after all." "Still saying you're not?" Guan feigned anger and left with a flick of his sleeve. Although he didn't understand the origin of that treasure, Guan decided to stay away, just in case his soul turned out to be something extraordinary. Of course, rationally speaking, there shouldn't be such a powerful treasure. Ji Xiaoyu stood where she was, watching him leave thoughtfully. Back in his room, Guan closed the door and took out a strange book he had just acquired from the Outer Gate City and started reading it. In this life, although Ji Xiaoyu was stubborn, she wasn't the type to pester, so after being refused by Guan, she just went back to her room to cultivate. In the following days, Guan avoided Ji Xiaoyu. As autumn approached, Guan returned from Qinya Valley, and his lifespan finally broke through to 30 million years today. He walked through the mountains and forests, his divine sense extending to the sea, locking onto the sea-breaking rift. Looking at the entire line of the sea-breaking rift, the number of cultivators and demons gathered around exceeded 10 million, not to mention how many creatures had gathered at the bottom of the rift. Soon, Guwen decided where to enter the bottom of the sea-breaking rift. As his right foot took another step, his entire aura suddenly changed, and he directly entered the special state of the carefree primordial immortal. He stepped into the limitless freedom step, quickly leaping out of the continent. After a few steps, he dove into the sea-breaking rift. Upon entering the sea-breaking rift, he felt as if he had entered an abyss. The surroundings were dark, with only the deafening sound of water falling on either side. During his descent, he encountered cultivators, demons, and divine exotic resentful ghosts flying out. Some brushed past him, and some passed directly through his body, none of them noticing his presence. The sea-breaking rift was deeper than Guwen had anticipated, seemingly leading to another world. After descending tens of millions of miles, a dim blue light appeared below, shimmering. He felt a unique aura like the power of some heaven and earth rule. He passed through this layer of dim blue light, clearly feeling like he had entered another world. The aura of this world felt familiar to him, giving him a sense of being inside divine exotic city. This place also contained many heavens and earths. He flew towards the world with the richest spiritual energy, which was also the most vast, several hundred times the size of the Supreme Sex continent. During his flight, Guwen saw many cultivators and demons traversing, the lowest cultivation level being the Wandering Immortal Realm. Only those who had reached the Wandering Immortal Realm could freely traverse these heavens and earths. Creatures with lower cultivation levels needed to use different heavens and earths teleportation arrays or space rifts for traversal. He also saw the figures of divine exotic resentful ghosts, wandering in the void, watching the passing creatures and ready to pounce at any moment. Guwen did not look much, his right foot stepping out again, arriving at a cliff. The sky here was blood-red, with dark clouds and faintly visible outlines of several moons. Guwen sat down cross-legged, directly activating the lifespan barrier. The spiritual energy here was incredibly abundant, even denser than the third medicine valley filled with medicinal herbs. No wonder so many cultivators and demons rushed in recklessly. Guwen did not immediately break through, instead admiring the scenery in all directions. The vastness of heaven and earth made it hard to see flowers or plants. Tornadoes roamed the mountains in the distance, stirring up many resentful souls that wailed and howled like ghosts. Desolate, bleak. That was Guwen's feeling. Hard to imagine what had happened to this land to end up in such a state. If everything in this world were flourishing, what level of spiritual energy could be reached? Guwen withdrew his gaze and then called up the attribute panel. Name, Guwen, lifespan, 174/30004901, physique, mystic holy body, cultivation level, 9th layer of carefree primordial immortal realm. Looking at his lifespan, Guwen's face showed a smile. He rubbed his hands together as if about to do something big. He decided to enhance his physique first and invest 1,000,000 years of lifespan to see the effect. From the innate Taoist body to mystic holy body, he had spent 520,000 years of lifespan back then. He wondered if 1,000,000 years would be enough for a transformation. Investing lifespan. Rows of prompts continued to pop up, all indicating that his bones were getting stronger. Ultimately, 1,000,000 years were not enough for a successful promotion. Guwen felt a bit distressed and changed his mind, deciding to try again. So he began to invest his lifespan year by year, 1,000 years at a time. The prompts came continuously, making his expression increasingly unnatural. Finally, you have comprehended the true meaning of heaven and earth for 10,000 years, subjected your body to the tempering of the true meaning of heaven and earth, and your bones have transformed. Your mystic holy body has upgraded to primordial karmic body. Boom. Heaven and earth's spiritual energy suddenly surged toward his body, and a sea of spiritual energy mist appeared on the ground, magnificent and beautiful. Guwen's face showed a smile. Breaking through his physique cost 1,670,000 years. Who could bear that cost? Guwen hesitated, wondering whether to enhance his cultivation technique. He feared that enhancing both would leave insufficient lifespan to break through his realm. As his realm advanced, the difficulty of breaking through kept increasing. If his next breakthrough consumed as much lifespan as the last time, it would indicate that his power was leaping forward. Reducing the required lifespan would be almost impossible. He could only try to minimize the lifespan consumed in breakthrough without causing the number to multiply. The ground kept shaking, and the spiritual energy in heaven and earth kept sinking, startling countless divine exotic resentful ghosts. On the other side of the world, by the sea, Impermanence Tian suddenly stood up, looking around in panic. The beach under his feet trembled, causing the waves to surge, and the sinking of spiritual energy stirred up strong winds. Could it be him? Impermanence. Tian gritted his teeth. Although more than 2 months had passed, he had been on edge, fearing that person would come to kill him any moment. The sinking of spiritual energy might be related to the riot of this world's rules, not related to any person. The cold voice from the tablet emerged, and upon hearing it, Impermanence. Tian breathed a sigh of relief and sat down again. Impermanence. Tian complained, "Realm Master, when will you regain your cultivation level and control the order of the divine exotic realm? More and more cultivators are breaking in. This will cause trouble sooner or later." The voice in the tablet did not answer him. Impermanence. Tian waited a while, but he could only close his eyes and continue practicing. On the cliff, within the lifespan barrier, Guan endured the pain of his Bodish transformation, feeling conflicted. Back then, it took 700,000 years of lifespan for the 5 elements Taoist skill to transform into heaven and earth primordial skill. Enhancing it again would probably consume at least 2 million years of lifespan. Do it. He should enhance his cultivation technique since he had already passed heaven and earth primordial skill onto Yang Jian and An Hao. As a master, one must hold back something. How could he practice the same level cultivation technique as his disciples? Guan immediately invested 1 million years of lifespan. As expected, it was not successful. He invested another 1 million years of lifespan. Failed. 500,000 years of lifespan. Failed. 200,000 years of lifespan. Heaven and Earth primordial skill successfully promoted to primordial chaos supreme holy skill, but the cultivation technique level just reached a slight achievement. 2,700,000 years of lifespan. Guan felt heartache, and not only that, the lifespan barrier consumed lifespan quickly. In this short time, it had already consumed several thousand years of lifespan. If he didn't leave himself 1 million years of lifespan, Guan feared either the lifespan barrier would consume him to death, or he would have to shut it down before the breakthrough ended, exposing himself. Guan had intended to enhance the all things form and energy art, which was crucial for hiding his cultivation level and was a body cultivation method. But now it seemed to have to be set aside. He thought to himself that after breaking through his cultivation level, he would save 5 million years of lifespan to enhance the all things form and energy art. Guan silently thought about it. The memory of the cultivation technique did not flood into his mind. It seemed the primordial karmic body contained mysterious memories that needed to be passed on first before the cultivation technique memories. He waited patiently. An ancient hour later, his physique completely transformed into the primordial karmic body. The primordial karmic body was extremely powerful, capable of isolating all power of cause and effect, even using the power of cause and effect to harm enemies. Everything was tied to cause and effect. An enemy's cultivation technique and divine skills all had cause and effect. He could peer into the cause and effect of their cultivation technique and divine skills to find weaknesses. If his cultivation level were strong enough, he could even directly destroy their Tao level. The primordial karmic body would also generate the primordial divine eye, containing numerous mysteries he would need time to study. Next was receiving the memory inheritance of primordial chaos supreme holy skill. The continuous influx of earth spirit energy into Guan's body gave him only a few seconds of clear consciousness before he was plunged into the vast memory. Primordial chaos supreme holy skill contained 5 element attributes, evolving into a chaotic spirit sea, refining stronger mana, origin dharma power. Origin dharma power was a robust and vast power. With the cultivation technique's enhancement, the speed of generating spiritual energy within his body was swift, almost reaching the point of a continuous mana supply. Of course, this would require heaven and earth's spiritual energy and elixirs to match his mana consumption speed. Simultaneously, this cultivation technique included a divine skill, known as the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. As its name suggested, the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand could capture the sky, act both offensively and defensively, and even had sealing effects. Another ancient hour passed, and Guan slowly opened his eyes. A golden thread appeared between his eyebrows, glowing with a golden rainbow, making him appear illusory. Guan raised his right hand, condensing Origin Dharma power in his palm, transforming his hand into the Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. He could capture the sky, quell the earth, and even massacre all living beings. Guan restrained his urge to strike, dissipating the Origin Dharma power in his hand, then called up the attribute panel again. Seeing his rapidly declining lifespan, he instantly became alert. He patted his face with both hands and thought, the next step is the most crucial moment. Breaking through his cultivation level. Attempting to surpass the carefree primordial immortal. Chapter 272. Breaking through the ninth layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. Guwen looked at his more than 25 million years of lifespan and began to take deep breaths. Ancestors of Wuxia, please bless me. Guwen directly invested 10 million years of lifespan in one go. He had never been so generous before. You cultivated chi absorption for 60,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, but failed to endure the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, resulting in failure. You cultivated chi absorption for 120,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, but failed to endure the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, resulting in failure, 60,000 years per tribulation crossing. It was still acceptable, after all. The breakthrough to the carefree primordial immortal realm required 50,000 years per tribulation. A higher realm only consumed an additional 10,000 years per attempt, proving that the primordial karmic body and primordial chaos supreme holy skill were indeed exerting their power. Would 10 million years of lifespan bring any surprise? Guwen's mind was filled with chaotic thoughts, and endless prompts frantically appeared before his eyes, more than he had ever seen before. Failure. Failure. Still failure. Guwen resumed his previous habit of checking the length of the prompt bar, verifying if there were any changes. If not, it meant no success. Eventually, 10 million years of lifespan were wasted. Breaking through physique and cultivation techniques, even in failure, could at least enhance his understanding of spiritual energy and rules. However, when it came to cultivation level breakthroughs, failure was simply failure. This 10 million years of lifespan was essentially evaporated. Guwen looked at his remaining more than 15 million years of lifespan, feeling somewhat panicked. 10 million years of lifespan he would need to farm for 20 years to achieve that. Guwen could only compare it to the ages of those in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. They need tens of thousands or even more years to break through a small realm. Why should he feel distressed? Invest heavily. Investing heavily would eventually lead to success. This time he would not use 10 million years again but invest 5 million years. Guwen silently thought, then focused on the cultivation level column and invested his lifespan. Failure prompts continued to flood the screen. In the end, even after spending 5 million years of lifespan, the breakthrough was unsuccessful. Another 5 million years of lifespan. Guwen's lifespan suddenly dropped to over 5 million years, making him feel extremely short-lived, as if he might die the next day. Alas, it was hard to transition from extravagance to frugality. Guwen sighed inwardly, closing his eyes. Yet even with his eyes shut he could still see the prompts. Another failure. This time he evaporated 20 million years of lifespan. This was after enhancing his physique and cultivation techniques. If he had not enhanced them, would he have needed over 30 million years of lifespan to succeed in a breakthrough? Guwen gritted his teeth and invested another million years of lifespan. You cultivated chi absorption for 730,000 years, and with great accomplishment in primordial chaos supreme holy skill, you forcibly attempted a breakthrough to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, started the tribulation crossing, endured the 6 paths of illusion ultimate law tribulation, succeeded in the tribulation crossing, and your cultivation level broke through to the first layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi absorption for 830,000 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the second layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi absorption for 930,000 years, and your cultivation level broke through to the third layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. You cultivated chi absorption for 1 million years, and your cultivation level increased. He finally succeeded. Before the breakthrough, the recovery time after failing the tribulation crossing was shortened, which was somewhat peculiar. Guwen let out a sigh of relief, a smile appearing on his face. After 21 million years of lifespan he finally succeeded in the breakthrough. 10,000 years per small realm, Guwen felt it was somewhat small. He continued to invest his lifespan, raising his realm to the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm in one go, consuming another 1,030,000 years of lifespan. Reaching the 5th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm required 20,000 years for a breakthrough, and from the 8th layer to the 9th layer, it took 30,000 years of lifespan. 22,030,000 years. Guwen wanted to see how many years it would take for a real divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to break through a small realm in reality. If it was less than his, he could accept it as the cost of lifespan evolution exceeded reality. But it couldn't be much less or he would find it hard to accept. However, he did not want to deal with divine immortals of wondrous dharma for now. He was not even 200 years old and did not want to interact with those tens of thousands or even millions of years old monsters. There was a generation gap. As he thought, he endured the violent surge of earth spirit energy flowing into his body. This disturbance far exceeded the one caused by the enhancement of physique and cultivation techniques, and the whole heaven and earth was trembling. Endless divine exotic resentful ghosts flew out, covering the sky and earth, fleeing everywhere, wailing everywhere, making even Guan feel annoyed. But for the sake of the breakthrough he could only wait in peace. This disturbance began to radiate to other heavens and earths, as every piece of heaven and earth was connected by rules of power. In a small piece of heaven and earth, a figure flew out from the mountains and forests. This was a woman in a purple dress with a small ghost lying on her shoulder, precisely the second cave master of the Seven Stars spirit realm. She frowned tightly, her divine sense spreading, covering the whole minor heaven and earth, failing to find the cause of the calamity. Mother, earlier the spiritual energy sank in the sea. Why is it happening in the divine exotic realm? Is it man-made or some kind of omen? The small ghost asked cautiously, scanning the surroundings in fear as if some terrible power in the darkness had set its sights on him. After a long time, the second cave master finally spoke. I am not sure either, but it is not just the spiritual energy of this heaven and earth that is sinking, it is happening in other heavens and earths as well. This indicates that this anomaly is not directed at us. The small ghost continued, I heard that divine strange ghost King Heaven Unpredictable was crushed by Sword Venerable Fudao. Mother, do you think Sword Venerable Fudao infiltrated here? The second cave master's face changed slightly and immediately disappeared from the spot. By the seaside, Heaven Unpredictable stood before a stele, trembling all over with nervousness. He turned his head toward the stone tablet and asked through gritted teeth, Realm Master, is it really all right? As his words fell, phantom figures appeared out of thin air around the stele, each exuding an aura no weaker than Heaven Unpredictable. There were 8 figures in total. The 9 divine exotic ghost kings gathered. Each of their faces was incredibly solemn. A woman with a human head and a snake body spoke up. Realm Master, the spiritual energy of all heavens and earths is sinking, unknown forces are siphoning it off, it is impossible to trace. Her enchanting face frowned, and her eyes were filled with fierce hostility. Other divine exotic ghost kings started speaking, all expressing unease. Is it possible that it is the transcendental beings from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect? The Bitter Sea Buddha sect is manageable, but I fear it might be the doing of the Immortal Path Holy Court. That cannot be, except for those who have transcended the rules of the heavens who could cause such a commotion. What should we do if they do not follow the rules? Let's wait for the Realm Master's instruction, he surely knows more than we do. The divine exotic ghost kings debated and then all looked at the stele. Blood began to seep out of the stele's surface, and a pale hand reached out from within, its nails sharp like a ghost's claws. Soon after, a head emerged, sparse white hair hanging down. It was a naked man with black runes crawling all over his bloodless body, squirming like fiendish worms, making one's skin crawl. The master of divine exotic realm. As soon as he appeared, all 9 divine exotic ghost kings knelt halfway down, bowing to him. The master of divine exotic realm landed, and black armor covered his body, looking like a myriad of snake scales tightly packed together, even forming a dark red crown with 2 dragon souls writhing within, seemingly trying to escape their confinement. He opened his eyes and there were no pupils, only a blood-red color. All of you sit down, I will carefully investigate. The master of divine exotic realms said, his tone indifferent. Upon hearing his words, the divine exotic ghost kings sighed in relief and sat down one after another. As soon as they sat, they felt a terrifying divine sense sweep past their ghost bodies, alarming them. Could it be that the Realm Master had restored his cultivation? Each of them was at the 9th layer of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, with 1 foot in the carefree primordial immortal realm. Yet, in front of the divine sense of the master of divine exotic realm, they felt themselves weak and insignificant. Elsewhere, within the lifespan barrier, Guan opened his eyes and looked toward the skyline, puzzled. Despite the barrier of lifespan, he still sensed the divine sense of a carefree primordial immortal sweeping over the entire heaven and earth. That person was not an ordinary carefree primordial immortal. No wonder so many sects could not do anything about the sea-breaking rift. Achieving the heaven and earth flying immortal realm meant going beyond heaven. How much more so for a carefree primordial immortal? At least until today, Guan had not encountered a true carefree primordial immortal. Guan calmed down, waiting for his breakthrough. Endless spiritual energy surged into his body as the mental method of primordial chaos supreme holy skill started to operate, continuously impacting higher realms. He could clearly feel his soul undergoing transformation. What was a divine immortal of wondrous dharma? Guan was filled with anticipation. The cliff beneath his feet trembled violently, even beginning to crack. He was not, however, worried. At worst he would fall. After all, the lifespan barrier followed him. In the meantime, countless divine exotic resentful ghosts flew around, seemingly patrolling the heaven and earth, occasionally passing over his head. He really feared a divine exotic resentful ghost might break in. If discovered by that carefree primordial immortal, it would be disastrous. In that case, Guan could only kill the intruder. But Guan always suspected that the other party might have a background. The sea-breaking rift affected countless sea regions and sects, some of which even had array restrictions to prevent carefree primordial immortals peeping. Even so far only heaven and earth flying immortals had stepped forward to fight the divine exotic resentful ghosts of the sea-breaking rift, which spoke volumes. Perhaps there was some force in the dark balancing the carefree primordial immortals, preventing them from interfering. Guan pondered as he awaited breakthrough success. Time ticked by slowly. After nearly an ancient hour, he finally succeeded. From the 9th layer of the carefree immortal realm to the 1st layer of the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm. The surge of spiritual energy into his body soared, and his soul instantly leapt out of his flesh. The abundant spiritual energy tempered his body, while the power of heaven and earth rules within the energy converged on his soul, putting it in a wondrous state of creation. The spiritual, in the divine immortal of wondrous dharma referred to the soul. An uninterrupted stream of created memories flooded into Guan's mind, giving him the feeling of swimming in a vast ocean. It was an ocean formed by the power of heaven and earth rules. Creation. True meaning. Guan immersed himself deeply, unable to escape, only feeling his soul was about to break free and be reborn. His divine sense was transforming as well, witnessing too many illusions. Chapter 273 Please forgive me, Senior. Guan saw visions of all manner of life, witnessing infants being born, witnessing common folk marrying and starting families, watching demon creatures kill for survival, and seeing people weeping in front of altars. And so on. There were joys and there were sorrows. It was as if he were observing the lives of all beings, countless images passing before his eyes, an overwhelming sea of scenes that would drive an ordinary immortal to insanity. Guan was different. He was undergoing a transformation into a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. At first he felt some discomfort, but gradually he adapted, even beginning to catch glimpses of destiny within the endless visions. The divine immortal of wondrous dharma could perceive destiny, and destiny could form fate, which meant the divine immortal of wondrous dharma could see the fate of most beings. Destiny was based on cause and effect, yet it independently formed rules. A person's life intersected with their surrounding environment. Different choices created different life paths. Choices were cause and effect, and the paths they formed were destiny. However, unlike cause and effect, destiny also involved factors beyond cause and effect, such as natural disasters. Destiny was based on the rules of heaven and earth, the choices of cause and effect in a person's life. Heaven and earth flying immortal and carefree primordial immortal delved into the way of cause and effect, while divine immortal of wondrous dharma studied the Tao of destiny. Observing the fate of all beings, comprehending the true essence of destiny. Guan's consciousness immersed itself in this, his soul constantly transforming, his cultivation level continuously increasing. Divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm 2nd layer. 3rd layer. 4th layer. The cliff beneath Guan collapsed and he fell along with it, disappearing into the swirling dust. Under the blood-colored sky, the figures of divine exotic resentful ghosts flitted by, thunderclouds roiling, and in the clouds, faintly visible, were the massive forms of evil ghosts as large as mountain ranges. After a full 2 ancient hours the area finally calmed down, but the spiritual energy between heaven and earth had also become thin. By the sea, the 9 divine exotic ghost kings around the steel all breathed a sigh of relief. The anomalies were finally over, and during this process they had not encountered any attacks. Perhaps it was truly a disturbance in the rules of heaven and earth, rather than an attack from a strong enemy. The master of divine exotic realm meditated in midair, eyes closed, brow furrowed. His divine sense continually scanned the various parts of the divine exotic realm, inspecting every inch of land, but he could not detect any anomalies, and even he, the realm master, did not know where the spiritual energy had descended. This made him very uneasy, feeling he was losing control over the divine exotic realm. Even if it was just a disturbance in the rules of heaven and earth, there must be a reason behind it, and he did not know what it was. He slowly opened his eyes, his gaze falling on the 9 divine exotic ghost kings below, his eyes flickering. Could it be that these fellows had offended someone and the other party was warning him? Amidst the vast dust, Guan sat cross-legged on the ground. The lifespan barrier did not isolate the dust, but the dust could not approach him. His entire being emitted 7-colored radiance, and the golden pattern on his forehead shone with golden light, like an eye floating before his forehead. His cultivation had already reached the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm. The reason he did not open his eyes was because he was carefully comprehending the mysteries of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. His soul had already transformed into the immortal soul of wondrous Dharma. As long as the soul existed, the physical body could perish and still be restored. This was the powerful aspect of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. However, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma still had a heavenly destiny, meaning its lifespan had limits, something he could clearly sense through his insights into the Tao of destiny. After a long time, he slowly opened his eyes, and the golden pattern on his forehead flickered, then absorbed the illusory primordial divine eye into the golden pattern. This golden pattern made him appear more divine. He could not yet absorb it into his body unless he used a spell to conceal it. After some thought, he decided to leave it as it was. After all, with the all things form and energy art, no one would be able to see through his primordial divine eye. Guan called up the attribute panel, and his lifespan was only a little more than 2,200,000 years left. The lifespan barrier consumed too much. Guan took a deep breath, stood up and turned his head to look. He had already spotted impermanence Tian, so he immediately used the 9 extremes yin-yang body, transforming into a dark purple shadow. He cancelled the lifespan barrier. With one step, he appeared behind impermanence Tian. At this moment, impermanence Tian was still discussing the recent anomalies with the other divine exotic ghost kings, when the ghost kings in front of him suddenly widened their eyes. He had just noticed this, and a hand fell upon his shoulder. Smack. This slap sent his heart plummeting into an abyss, an unstoppable feeling of terror surging through him. The other 8 divine exotic ghost kings immediately jumped aside, keeping their distance from Guan. The master of divine exotic realm also looked at Guan, frowning, his divine sense unable to penetrate the 9 extremes yin-yang body, increasing his wariness of Guan to the peak. Guan cast a lifespan detection at the master of divine exotic realm, only able to see his realm. Carefree immortal realm 5th layer. This realm was already very strong. Before breaking through, Guan matched against him would have only a 90% chance of instant kill, very dangerous. Fortunately, he had broken through. Guan secretly rejoiced, his peripheral vision glancing at the nearby steel. All divine soul demons had connections of cause and effect with this steel. Their power would converge within it. Who are you? What do you want? A divine exotic ghost king asked in a deep voice, his tone tense. Guan appeared too suddenly, they had no prior notice, and they could not see through Guan's cultivation level, so how could they not be afraid? The most important thing was that Guan seemed to be looking at the divine exotic life tablet. Guan did not answer him, instead opening his mouth to ask, "Extract impermanence Tian's power, or you will all be utterly annihilated together." As soon as these words were spoken, the faces of the divine exotic ghost kings changed drastically, looking at him with expressions full of shock and anger. But no one dared to refute, much less make a move. They could only turn their gazes to the master of divine exotic realm. Impermanence Tian trembled all over, unable to speak, only looking up at the master of divine exotic realm with pleading eyes. The master of divine exotic realm's face was grim, staring intently at Guan. Guan was not in a hurry, waiting for him to make a decision, letting impermanence Tian feel the despair. This guy had oppressed 2 of Guan's disciples so greatly before, killing him directly would be too easy on him. After reaching the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, Guan became more certain there was a transcendent presence behind the master of divine exotic realm, as the steel contained the aura of several carefree primordial immortals, suggesting there might be a faction behind the master of divine exotic realm. For now, he did not want to alert this presence unless the divine exotic resentful ghosts threatened the continent where the supreme sect resided. Moreover, within this land he had sensed a familiar aura, so he could not simply destroy the steel. The master of divine exotic realm took a deep breath, raised his right hand, and made a grabbing motion toward the divine exotic life tablet from afar. A soul flew out, unexpectedly. It was the soul of Impermanence Tian, but this soul was curled up, lifeless like a soul shell. Impermanence Tian's eyes were filled with despair and even a hint of resentment, not toward Guan, but toward the master of divine exotic realm. If he could speak now, he would certainly curse the master of divine exotic realm. The other divine exotic ghost kings could understand the look in his eyes, feeling equally distressed, sharing the feeling of the death of a kindred spirit. Guan squeezed his right hand and Impermanence Tian in his hand instantly turned to ash. He waved his sleeve, dispersing Impermanence Tian's true soul. No prompt for gaining lifespan, but Impermanence Tian was no more. Guan sent a voice transmission to the master of divine exotic realm, said a sentence and then turned to leave. The master of divine exotic realm squinted his eyes, then called out, "Wait." Guan stopped, his back still facing him. The master of divine exotic realm looked down at him, saying, "In front of many ghost kings, I let you eliminate one of my ghost kings. The other ghost kings do not understand. Why not take my palm and let them feel your power?" As soon as he said this, the wind between heaven and earth ceased, and the waves of the sea stood still. The 8 divine exotic ghost kings looked at Guan, hardly daring to breathe. They cursed inwardly, they did not want to feel anything. They had already seen the display of power, how could they doubt it? They understood the master of divine exotic realm was unwilling, using them as an excuse. "Feel my power?" Guan's voice rang out. He slowly turned around, and in an instant his entire being grew enormously, standing between heaven and earth. Divine skill, great and minor Rui. The 8 divine exotic ghost kings looked up, dumbfounded. Guan grew to a towering height of 10,000 zhang, his head against the blood-colored sky, his feet on the ground, with dark purple demonic chi surging around him like an ocean, magnificent and unparalleled. In front of Guan, the ghost kings could not help but feel a sense of fear. A vast pressure enveloped them, rendering them motionless. The face of the master of divine exotic realm also changed dramatically. As a carefree primordial immortal, he could more acutely sense Guan's terrifying power. Guan raised his right hand, and in the palm as large as a mountain, threads of rainbow light burst forth. Origin heaven capturing hand. As the divine skill condensed, the master of divine exotic realm and the ghost kings felt as if the sky were falling. "Once my palm is raised, it must fall. Master of divine exotic realm, how will you have me withdraw my palm now?" Guan's voice echoed throughout heaven and earth, his tone indifferent as if imbued with celestial might. The master of divine exotic realm abruptly fell, crashing into the ground, causing countless cracks to spread across the barren land by the sea. He trembled all over, struggling to resist Guan's pressure. The other divine exotic ghost kings were similarly pressed to the ground, unable to stand, looking at the master of divine exotic realm in despair. The master of divine exotic realm gritted his teeth, his legs bending until he kneeled on the ground. He supported himself with both hands on the ground, speaking slowly, "Please forgive me, Senior." His voice echoed through the heavens, heard by countless divine exotic resentful ghosts. The ghost kings looked at him, lowering his proud head, feeling both relieved and distressed. They were strong, capable of stirring the seas, but before the mightiest of the heavens, they were still like ants. Supreme Sect, 3rd Medicine Valley. Guan stepped off the transmission array platform, humming a little tune. "Hey, why so happy?" Passing by, Yuanying couldn't help teasing. Guan glanced at her and said, "It's all right." Yuanying giggled, "If you were born overseas, you wouldn't be in such a good mood now." Guan replied, "There are no ifs, are there? Cherish the present, enjoy life, Junior." As he finished, he walked towards the chess area in the distance, ready to defeat Nine-Finger Divine Lord in 3 more games. Let Nine-Finger Divine Lord feel the terrifying deductive abilities of the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. Yuanying watched Guan's back, pouting slightly, reflecting that sometimes being in the lower ranks might not be a bad thing, at least you don't have to worry about world-ending catastrophes. Chapter 274, Outer Heaven Energy Movement Treasure Position. As dusk approached, the sun set in the west. Guan sat on the stone bench, playing with the 7 stars mirror in his hand, his face full of impatience. The nine-fingered divine lord who sat opposite him wore a gloomy expression, and the onlookers around them also frowned deeply, their eyes fixed on the chessboard. Still haven't figured it out? Admit defeat. Guan couldn't help but speak out, which sounded absurd. He had been playing chess with the nine-fingered divine lord all afternoon, and this was still the first game with the nine-fingered divine lord having only placed 37 pieces. This guy couldn't beat him, so he wanted to wear him down? Guan saw through the nine-fingered divine lord's intention, so he placed each chess piece in the position the nine-fingered divine lord was thinking of playing, causing him great torment. Being seen through felt extremely uncomfortable. The nine-fingered divine lord couldn't understand it. He had simulated countless scenarios and thought his chess strategies were varied, yet Guan always managed to play where he intended, interrupting his thoughts. Little did he know, Guan could see through his strategies by using his ability to peer into fate. Guan could foresee what the nine-fingered divine lord would do next. Although the nine-fingered divine lord's cultivation level was high, preventing Guan from seeing too far into his future, he could easily see through the next hour. The slower the nine-fingered divine lord played, the faster Guan played, quick, precise and ruthless, constantly attacking his psychological defenses. Hearing Guan's words, the nine-fingered divine lord cursed inwardly. If they were at sea, who would dare treat him like this? The key issue was that he indeed had a scheme, so he was both angry and embarrassed. The nine-fingered divine lord took a deep breath and made another move. Click. The sound of the chess piece landing was as loud as a thunderclap, startling the onlookers to shrink their necks. The nine-fingered divine lord was also startled and couldn't help but touch the chess piece. Guan's lips curved upward, and he used the seven stars mirror as a fan, pretending to be profound and mysterious. The nine-fingered divine lord looked at him and suddenly felt like hitting someone. No more. No more. The nine-fingered divine lord shouted angrily. Upon hearing this, Guan immediately stood up and left. Watching his back, the nine-fingered divine lord opened his mouth but only felt a heavy weight on his chest. Guan decided to take a walk and personally see every inch of the Third Medicine Valley. He wanted to use his perception as the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to feel the place he had lived in for so many years. Just as he hadn't walked far, Yang Jian came up to him and told Guan that he didn't know why, but he suddenly felt enlightened and relieved today. Guan smiled and comforted him, saying it was because his cultivation had shown results. Receiving praise from his master, Yang Jian was instantly invigorated and left happily, prepared to spar with Li Lingtian. He knew Li Lingtian had always wanted to spar with him. As soon as Yang Jian left, an Xang came and said the white spirit rat was missing again. Guan began to comfort her. After sending an Xian away, Tang Yu came. There were quite a few trivial matters today, unlike usual. Guan did not feel irritated but rather found it amusing. What about being the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma? He still cared about these low-level old friends around him and wanted to maintain his life. The path to immortality was long, and the 9 heavens of immortal path, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, was merely the 6th layer heaven. What kind of realm lay beyond the 9 heavens? He was very much looking forward to it and was full of fighting spirit. An hour later, night fell and Guan leisurely walked back to the pavilion. From afar he saw a graceful figure standing under the pavilion. It was Ji Xiaoyu. Guan saw that Ji Xiaoyu was holding an object in her hand. He did not mind, as he had already seen through the causes and effects of that treasure. The blood prison great saint lying on the ground saw Guan, and his ox-like eyes lit up. He felt that his master had changed a bit again. Could it be that his master had become stronger again? This was definitely a good thing for him. The stronger the master, the greater his face, and he could also gain more benefits. Guan came to Ji Xiaoyu and asked with a smile, "Isn't this your time for cultivation at night? Why are you waiting here?" Ji Xiaoyu's eyes fell on Guan's forehead, where a golden pattern faintly glowed under the night sky. She couldn't help but raise her hand and touch her own forehead. There was a red pattern on her forehead, finer than Guan's Dao pattern. She smiled and said softly, "Nothing, just came out to look at the moonlight." The item she was holding in her other hand disappeared. Guan turned around and stood shoulder to shoulder with her, looking at the bright moon in the night sky. He smiled and said, "Xiaoyu, what do you think the scene beyond the sky is like?" Ji Xiaoyu, hearing this, looked up at the night sky and replied, "Perhaps there are many other worlds. I have heard the elders in my clan say that every star in the sky is a world. The Tao is simple and all things follow the same principles. Life on earth is as tiny as dust, and the heavens and earth in the Tao are as small as stars." Guan couldn't help but turn his head to look at her, surprised she could speak such profound words. Unknowingly, this girl had already grown so tall. If one cultivates to immortality, they can eventually fly beyond the sky. Ji Xiaoyu finished speaking and looked at Gu, and met her gaze and found that her eyes were still very beautiful. The two of them started chatting about the world beyond the sky, imagining various scenarios. They spoke slowly, feeling like a gently flowing stream. Half an hour later, Gu bid farewell to her and went to his room on the second floor. Sitting at the desk, Gu looked at the starry sky outside the window and murmured, "Cultivating to immortality and flying beyond the sky? Why not go and see the world beyond tonight?" When he reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, he went to Immortal Seeking Island. Now, having reached the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, he could once again explore a broader world. Guan's lips curved upward, and his immortal soul of wondrous Dharma directly jumped out of his body, out of this world. In an instant he was in the starry sky, overlooking the great heavenly spirit land below. Guan suppressed his aura to the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, and the seven-colored glow belonging to the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma was concealed into his primordial spirit. From the cosmos, the great heavenly spirit land appeared as a vast continent, covered in a layer of golden light, with 7 suns beyond the gold, floating in the sky and operating in some ever-changing and mystical pattern. The mysterious beings within the 7 suns still existed. Observing them from the cosmos, one could sense their immense aura even more. They were all carefree primordial immortals. In this sense, they seemed more like the guardians of the great heavenly spirit land. Guan turned around and headed deeper into the cosmos. The stars in the cosmos were indeed worlds, some were planets, while others were continents. Not all worlds contained life, and some worlds were inhabited only by wandering spirits. These worlds were also covered in a layer of golden light, isolating beings below the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. Guan's flying speed was swift, but he stayed within the speed range of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The cosmos was vast. Even at the speed of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, it would be difficult to encounter other heaven and earth flying immortal beings in a short time, let alone stronger existences. However, during his flight, Guan sensed several unusual auras from various directions far away. The outer heavens also held dangers. Eventually, Guan locked his divine sense onto a heaven and earth flying immortal and quickly flew towards him. Besides the worlds constrained by mysterious forces, there were also some meteorites of various sizes roaming aimlessly in the cosmos. On one of these meteorites, which was as large as a continent, hid a heaven and earth flying immortal. It was a cultivator of the human race. This person was meditating in front of a mountain wall, his Taoist robe as white as feathers, and his face handsome, looking no more than 20 years old, with an otherworldly aura. When Guan approached him, he used his lifespan detection on him. Baizia, Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm, 3rd Layer 124, 902/350, 000/400, 000. Baizia sensed Guan's aura and opened his eyes, his pupils a clear blue like 2 crystal stones. He stood up and watched Guan approach. As Guan landed, he cupped his fists in greeting and said, "I am Ming Lang, new to the outer heavens. It must be fate to meet a Taoist friend. Would you like to be friends?" After hearing this, Baizia smiled and said, "So it is your first time in the outer heavens. No wonder you are so reckless. Consider yourself lucky to have met me. My name is Baizia. In the future, you should be more careful. Encountering a cultivator here is more dangerous than encountering a demon." Feigning puzzlement, Guan asked, "Is the outer heavens so dangerous?" Baizia resumed his meditative position and rolled up his sleeve, motioning for Guan to sit down as well. Guan sat down, and Baizia first introduced himself before telling him about the situation in the outer heavens. Baizia also came from the great heavenly spirit land and was one of the peak masters of Mortal World Peak. He had been in the outer heavens for 20,000 years and was recently preparing to return to the great heavenly spirit land for a visit. According to him, within the great heavenly spirit land, the immortal path holy court restrained the great cultivators, but there were no rules in the outer heavens. If you died here, the cause and effect were hard to trace back to the great heavenly spirit land, so the great cultivators were even more reckless in the outer heavens. There were many worlds in the outer heavens, but the great heavenly spirit land was the main one, while the other worlds were minor. As for whether there were worlds comparable to the great heavenly spirit land, Baizia didn't say much. In any case, this starry sky was dominated by the great heavenly spirit land. Aside from the struggles among cultivators, the cosmos was also home to heavenly demons. These demons had existed since ancient times, were endless and had formed their own forces. They were very hostile towards cultivators and demons, killing them on sight. Baizia had encountered the most terrifying heavenly demon, one that swallowed a heaven and earth flying immortal in one gulp. He only escaped because he was faster than the other heaven and earth flying immortals. To this day, thinking about it still gave him chills. If you are curious about the outer heavens, don't go too deep into the cosmos. Once you step into the silent destruction domain, it is swarming with heavenly demons, and also filled with various terrifying and strange curses. Heaven and earth flying immortals who enter have a slim chance of survival. Of course, if you see no hope for a breakthrough, you may as well try your luck. Some have managed to defy fate in the silent destruction domain. It's said that the silent destruction domain was once a prosperous large world, more glorious than the great heavenly spirit land. In fact, the great heavenly spirit land is just a fragment of that world. Baizia spoke at length and Guan listened carefully. He didn't feel any hostility from Baizia, which indicated this person was enthusiastic and kind-hearted. Of course, Guan was not afraid of a sneak attack. Baizia looked at Guan and asked, "Taoist friend Meng Lang, which sect are you from?" The great heavenly spirit land was vast, but for heaven and earth flying immortals, it wasn't very big. Guan replied, "To be honest, I am just a loose cultivator with no sect. Years ago my sect caused trouble and was exterminated. I escaped and have been cultivating in seclusion ever since." Intrigued, Baizia asked, "You managed to reach the heaven and earth flying immortal realm just by cultivating on your own? Taoist friend, it seems you have great talent. Why not join our mortal world peak? I can make you a peak master, and you can also gain an energy movement treasure position in the Holy Court. With the Holy Court's chi fortune, perceiving the heaven and earth rules will become easier." Chapter 275 The Status of Mortal World Peak. Taoist friend, can you introduce me to the Holy Court? Guan didn't immediately accept Baizia's invitation but instead asked this question. Is there an entire dynasty of immortal spirits within the great heavenly spirit land? Could it be the Holy Court? No, that dynasty, though powerful, was definitely not the most powerful in the world. In the mortal world, there was an incredibly vast continent, and even the divine sense of the carefree primordial immortal faced resistance just by nearing its edge. That continent should be the location of the Holy Court. Baizia gave Guan a suspicious look. How could this person not know about the Holy Court? How long has he been in seclusion? Although puzzled, Baizia still introduced it as was appropriate. The Holy Court is the absolute ruler of the great heavenly spirit land and the origin of the immortal path, located in the Taoist divine continent of great heavenly spirit land. The Taoist divine continent is the largest continent within the great heavenly spirit land, and the human race also originated from the Taoist divine continent, eventually spreading throughout the entire great heavenly spirit land. The Holy Court does not interfere with affairs across the land but ensures the safety of the great heaven and earth. If there is a world-ending catastrophe or an invasion by outer heaven demons, they would take action. They also oversee various chi fortune sects across the world. If any sect brings disaster to the world, the Holy Court would send someone to punish them. Within the great heavenly spirit land, the cultivators of the Holy Court represent immortals. Not all chi fortune sects can obtain the chi fortune treasure position of the Holy Court. The chi fortune treasure position enhances one's understanding of heaven and earth rules and extends lifespan, making it a pursuit for countless cultivators. Mortal World Peak may not be as powerful as it was in ancient times, but it has a profound foundation. Many of our ancestors are venturing in the outer heaven. If they encounter each other, they can offer mutual assistance. The Peak Master's authority is vast, not only holding office in the Holy Court but also overseeing tens of thousands of disciples on the peak. Baizia's tone was filled with pride, as if Mortal World Peak was the most formidable chi fortune sect in the world. Guan curiously asked, "How does Mortal World Peak compare to the Star Sea Congregation's 7-Star Spirit Realm, Deep Sea Spirit Palace and the Bitter Sea Buddha sect?" Baizia glared and said, "How can Star Sea Congregation's 7-Star Spirit Realm and Deep Sea Spirit Palace compare to our Mortal World Peak? The founder of Star Sea Congregations once cultivated at our Mortal World Peak and generations of their disciples remember our kindness. As for 7-Star Spirit Realm and Deep Sea Spirit Palace, they are just third-rate sections. Bitter Sea Buddha sect is somewhat formidable, but that's only because Xingtian has been interested in Buddhism for the last million years. Once Shengshan's favor passes, who knows if they can even stand their ground. Xingtian is the Lord of the Holy Court, named after heaven, and whose true name cannot be spoken. Baizia's tone was filled with disdain, which fueled Guan's imagination about Mortal World Peak. He stared at Guan and said, "What do you think, Daoist friend Meng? Join Mortal World Peak. Although there is no restriction from the Holy Court in the outer heaven, background still matters. Mortal World Peak has a significant reputation." Guan hesitated and said, "To be honest, I have some reservations about going to the Holy Court for the Chief Fortune Treasure position." The Chief Fortune Treasure position sounded great, but there were too many intricacies involved. The Holy Court could potentially control all Chief Fortune Treasure positions through Chief Fortune, which concerned his principles. What kind of nonsense is that? If you don't want it, I won't force you. I can leave the spot for someone else. Many people would fight tooth and nail for a Chief Fortune Treasure position. If you possess a Chief Fortune Treasure position, any sect in the world would have to respect you. As long as you don't exploit others, you'll be a welcome guest anywhere. Not every cultivator in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm can obtain a Chief Fortune Treasure position. Baizia shook his head, laughing. Guan curiously asked, "It's so rare. Why would you give it to me? We've just met and you're inviting me?" Baizia coughed and said, "It's precisely because I see your exceptional talent and lack of background. Within the great heavenly spirit land, unaligned cultivators in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm are extremely rare. Mortal World Peak is powerful but not invincible. Of course, after joining Mortal World Peak, if you misbehave, Mortal World Peak won't go easy on you. Our Mortal World Peak has beings that surpass those in the heaven and earth flying immortal realm." Reaching the heaven and earth flying immortal realm meant breaking through minor realms was incredibly difficult. It had been 10,000 years since he had a breakthrough in a minor realm. Guan wasn't surprised. He had long guessed that the Mortal World Peak hid some carefree primordial immortals. He continued to ask, "Why don't you try to recruit heaven and earth flying immortals from other sects? For example, there are heaven and earth flying immortals in the Star Sea congregations." Baizia shook his head and said, "How could it be so easy to recruit them? Not speaking of karma and relationships, those heaven and earth flying immortals wield great power within their sects and regions, monopolizing cultivation resources. Even if you join Mortal World Peak and hold a higher status than them, obtaining the same level of resources as them is difficult. Of course, joining their sects now would make it hard to surpass them since they have been established for tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years." Guan found it reasonable. After thinking for a moment, he said, "If that's the case, I'll join Mortal World Peak. However, I can't go to Mortal World Peak right now." "No problem. Mortal World Peak won't confine you. In fact, your disciples would be more than happy if you're not at the peak, allowing them to be carefree. My disciples and grandchildren probably have already forgotten me." Baizia laughed self-deprecatingly. He then took out a piece of green jade, carved with a mountain peak. "This is mortal jade, symbolizing the identity of the peak master. When you encounter disciples or affiliated sects of Mortal World Peak, you can show it. Of course, with your cultivation level, you can stand boldly in the mortal world." Baizia laughed. Guan accepted the mortal jade, examining it closely. He asked, "Aren't you afraid I'll act recklessly after receiving the jade and then escape?" Baizia laughed. "If you misbehave, the Holy Court will deal with you. As long as it's investigated that you didn't stay at Mortal World Peak, the Holy Court won't blame Mortal World Peak. In fact, when you show the mortal jade, you also add strength to Mortal World Peak, making the world know Mortal World Peak has another heaven and earth flying immortal." This made Guan more cautious of the Holy Court. No wonder the Seven Stars spirit realm didn't openly harm the continent's beings. They were afraid of the Holy Court. At that time, the Star Sea congregations also sent many disciples to gather evidence against the Seven Stars spirit realm, seemingly to accuse them. The Holy Court protected the beings of the world but not the sections. The world was vast, and the Holy Court couldn't care for every being, so there would always be places where beings suffered. Guan continued to inquire about the power dynamics of Mortal World Peak, and Baizia didn't hold back, informing him of the allies and affiliated sects of Mortal World Peak as well as their enemies. Overall, Mortal World Peak had more allies than enemies, which was why it could stand strong in the mortal world. As they continued talking, the conversation shifted to the outer heaven. Guan intentionally hinted at his desire to explore the outer heaven to prevent Baizia from investigating him in the mortal world. After chatting for a long time, Guan finally took his leave. He didn't head towards the great heavenly spirit land, but instead flew into the depths of the universe. Baizia watched Guan's departure direction, deep in thought. He mentioned the Star Sea congregations, Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and Deep Sea Spirit Palace. These three forces are adjacent to each other. Could he come from that region? I need to check it out. How could such a place produce a heaven and earth flying immortal without a sect background? Strange. After parting ways with Baizia, Guan only pretended to head towards the silent destruction domain. Once he escaped the divine sense range of the heaven and earth flying immortal, he used the limitless freedom step to return to the mortal world. Guan's soul re-entered his body, and he stretched with a yawn. It was still not yet dawn. He could sense Ji Xiaoyu's energy absorption aura downstairs. The outer heaven is vast, but the mortal world gives me more peace. Guan smiled as he thought this. He had no need for adventures. He would not wander the silent destruction domain, battling with heavenly demons. One step at a time. With the annual lifespan income, he couldn't imagine how powerful he would be in 10,000 years. 10,000 years was not long for a heaven and earth flying immortal, let alone for a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Guan picked up a travelogue and started reading. The moon set and the sun rose. Another morning dawned over the Medicine Valley. Guan got up to organize his clothes, then went downstairs to lead the disciples in their exercises. Nearly 1,000 people exercising together was quite a sight. Ji Xiaoyu walked out of the house. She didn't join the exercises, merely watching the disciples practice. It had become her habit. After the exercises, Li Lingtian ran over excitedly and said, "Sister Yu, I recently learned a spell that's quite powerful. Do you want to see it?" Ji Xiaoyu didn't even look at him, her eyes fixed on Gu, and Li Lingtian noticed her gaze and felt a pang of jealousy. He said softly, "Sister Yu, my senior brother Gu is quite the charmer. He has a junior sister and the Dao Tian sect's holy daughter has feelings for him. Also, Senior Lu, who left earlier, wants him as her Taoist friend as well." Ji Xiaoyu slightly frowned and glanced at him, asking, "Why are you telling me this?" Li Lingtian fake coughed and said, "I was afraid you didn't know." Ji Xiaoyu responded coldly, "Do you know why you're not as good as Yang Jian?" "Why?" "Because your mind is impure. As a cultivator, you're thinking about romantic affairs. It's ridiculous and unworthy. I do have feelings for him, but I haven't thought of becoming Taoist friends. My goal is to pursue the immortal path, and so is his. That's why, despite having many romantic interests, he has no Taoist friend," Ji Xiaoyu said calmly. After speaking, she walked past Li Lingtian towards Gu, and Li Lingtian stood there, his face awkward, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he reflected on Ji Xiaoyu's words. Indeed, he was still swayed by emotions. What kind of cultivator was he? Thinking closely, Yang Jian was practically a cultivation fanatic. Besides cultivation and chores, he did nothing else. Li Lingtian rubbed his chest, still sore from sparring with Yang Jian last night. Guan didn't pay attention to the conversation between Li Lingtian and Ji Xiaoyu. After chatting briefly with Ji Xiaoyu, he rode off on the blood prison Great Saint, accompanied by Yang Jian. Today was another day to harvest. And so it went. A month passed quickly. On this day, Guan arrived at Heavenly Phoenix Mountain Yenshu Cave. Tian Yaoer saw him and excitedly rushed forward, saying, "Master, there's activity in the outer world cave. Some immortal herbs have matured." Guan's interest piqued, and he called for Tianqing and Tianbai to head to the outer world cave. Tianqing and Tianbai immediately clung to his arms, making it difficult for Tian Yaoer to get close to Guan. Chapter 276. G-Number Lifespan, Wandering Immortal's Arrival. After arriving at the outer world cave, Guan indeed saw a 7th-order medicinal grass maturing. However, he felt it could still be left to grow, as the roots at the bottom of the plant kept growing, generating more seeds in the surrounding soil. Guan watched for a while. He didn't pick it, looking forward to it producing more seeds for better sustainable development. Having already reached the 9th layer of the mystic law spirit immortal realm, Guan no longer needed to rush to harvest thousands or even tens of thousands of years of lifespan. His goal was 100 million years of lifespan. As long as the overall time taken was shorter, that was fine. If the high-rank medicinal herbs in the outer world cave reached maturity, he might be able to harvest tens of millions of years of lifespan in one go. Just thinking about it made him a little excited. "I'm planning to expand this cave. Later you can move in. If you get bored, you can also raise some demons, but they must know the rules and not damage my medicinal herbs." Guan looked at the boundless medicinal garden and smiled softly. Hearing his words, Tian Yaoer and the other two women were very excited and began to imagine things together. Compared to raising demons, they were more eager to go out and explore. Guan promised them that once they reached the Mahayana realm, they could go out and play, which was also for their own good. Upon hearing about the Mahayana realm, the three women's faces all fell. How long would they have to cultivate to reach that level? The world outside is dangerous. If you get caught, being bullied would be the least of your worries. You might be skinned alive, have your flesh turned into elixirs, and your bones made into ornaments. Guan shook his head, scaring the three women in just a few sentences, making them not dare to think about going out anymore. Before meeting Guan, they had all faced hardships. Tian Yaoer had been kept in captivity by the Heaven Phoenix demon mother, while Tian Qing and Tian Bai were orphans who roamed everywhere after their parents died. During that time their wounds had never healed. Tian Qing sighed, "It's better to focus on cultivation and not raise any more demons to avoid distractions." Tian Bai hugged Guan's arm and nodded, swaying her body. Seeing this, Tian Yaoer quickly pushed her away and then took Guan's arm herself. "There's a calamity brewing outside right now." Guan's heart fluttered, but his face remained serious as he began to talk about the calamity on the ocean. The three women were quickly intrigued and listened attentively. The sea-breaking rift, divine exotic realm, divine exotic resentful ghosts, and other details made them tremble with fear. Immortal and indestructible ghosts, they didn't know how to deal with them. "Master, will this calamity affect you? Should you hide in the cave? If the forces on the sea can't handle it, it will eventually spread to the continent where we are. How could there be such terrifying ghosts in the world?" The three women started chattering again. After staying in the outer world cave for an hour, Guan finally returned to the Supreme Sect. He went to the Third Medicine Valley, habitually going to watch Nine-Finger Divine Lord play Go, but was stopped by Yu Yingying on the way. "Why do you smell so fragrant? And it's not just one type. You didn't visit a brothel, did you?" Yu Yingying looked at him, perplexed. Guan's mouth twitched. He said irritably, "Nonsense. Can't you talk more decently?" "Fine. Did you go to the Pleasant Fragrance Pavilion? That would be cleaner than you." Yu Yingying wasn't angry at his retort and instead smiled. "Indeed, no man is any good." Guan couldn't be bothered with her and walked past her. "Wait, the Star Sea congregations are giving the Supreme Sect 1,000 cultivation spots for 5 years. If you want to go, I can help you get one." Yu Yingying caught up and said. Guan didn't turn his head. "With my relationship with the sect leader, do I need your help?" Yu Yingying responded, "The Supreme Sect will surely choose the 1,000 most talented disciples. Even if you go, considering your cultivation level, you'll only feel pressured. If I put in a word for you, you'll have a better experience and greater gains. You might even go into closed-door cultivation upon returning and break through to the nascent soul realm." Guan stopped and looked at her. This girl only had a foundation establishment cultivation level, but her tone was so grand, indicating her high status within the Star Sea congregations. Guan suddenly became interested and began probing the mysterious power of cause and effect within Yu Yingying's body. He had long noticed that Yu Yingying's cultivation level was suppressed by this mysterious power of cause and effect, but he didn't want to cause trouble before, so he had been too lazy to investigate. Now, with his higher cultivation level, he could take a look. Because of this power of cause and effect, Guan couldn't directly deduce her fate. Suddenly, Guan saw a grotesque face bursting out from Yu Yingying's body, lunging at him, then dissipating into smoke. This was just an illusion without any real destructive power. Seeing through this illusion, Guan felt puzzled. "What's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything? Are you thinking about how to thank me? It's simple. Just write another journey to the west, focusing on the story after Sun Wukong becomes the victorious fighting Buddha. Stop wandering around aimlessly without any proper work," Yu Yingying said with her hands on her hips. Guan laughed. "No way this stops here. Some stories don't need to be written to the end. Leaving space for imagination makes them continually intriguing." Yu Yingying gave him a glare and asked, "Are you going or not?" "I'm not going. Thanks for your goodwill, but I'd rather spend my life peacefully in the Medicine Valley. If I go and your Star Sea holy daughter falls for me, what then?" "Pah, shameless. Our Star Sea congregations don't have any holy daughter. Being entangled by a female genius is also quite stressful, just like now." Yu Yingying started to make a move and Guan quickly jumped away and slipped away. This guy really didn't know what was good for him. Guan was afraid he might kill her with a single shock. Life continued quietly. After going to outer heaven once, Guan didn't go back. Having roughly understood the great heavenly spirit land, he felt no need to go again. The first snow of winter quietly arrived, and the Third Medicine Valley gradually turned white. Guan went downstairs and stood in front of the pavilion, raising his right hand to touch the falling snow. Feeling the slight chill in his palm, Guan's mood became joyful. His gaze turned to the entrance of the valley, where a vague figure was walking through the white, snowy landscape. A wandering immortal, and at the 9th layer. It was because of this person's arrival that Guan had come downstairs. Why would a wandering immortal arrive for no apparent reason? Guan watched quietly as that person entered the valley. The person was a handsome monk draped in a cassock, holding prayer beads, advancing with his eyes closed. The falling snow formed a white cape on his shoulders. Shinzi, Wandering Immortal Realm 9th Layer 45865/1900000/999999 A lifespan of 999,999 years? Guan had never seen such an extreme lifespan before. This was definitely the highest lifespan beyond nirvana he had ever seen. 9 was the highest number. He wondered if and how and Yang Jian, after their nirvana, could reach such a lifespan. Guan pondered thoughtfully, watching as Shinzi walked toward the Go area in the Medicine Valley, evidently heading for Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Many disciples in the valley noticed Shinzi's arrival. So not only was Guan watching him, Shinzi did not draw much of his attention, and he did not even open his eyes. After arriving among the crowd, Shinzi heard Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's urging voice. "Can you play faster? Your slow pace makes you an indecisive player." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord looked impatient, with his arms crossed. Across from him, Elder Lu muttered, "You were even slower than me when you played against my master." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord glared and replied, "I wanted to drag it out and win against your master. Do you think you can drag it out and win against me? Even if you lay in a coffin, I could leisurely sit here and wait for your next move. Does it have any meaning?" Hearing this, Elder Lu's face turned green. The surrounding disciples, displeased, began to criticize Nine-Fingered Divine Lord for speaking excessively. Of course, they dared to speak out because they knew Nine-Fingered Divine Lord well and knew he wouldn't be genuinely angry. Unbeknownst to when Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, within the 3rd Medicine Valley, could show his true self without pretenses, and he enjoyed this feeling. Even in the midst of verbally jousting with everyone, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord glanced at Shinzi in the crowd. He only took a look before withdrawing his gaze. Shinzi opened his eyes and began observing the game. After an hour, Elder Lu conceded the match. Others took turns playing while Shinzi stood by and watched. Although they were curious about him, no one questioned him further. By now they were used to great cultivators coming to the Medicine Valley to observe Go games, all for Nine-Fingered Divine Lord. Guan did not continue to watch Shinzi. He rode the Blood Prison Great Saint and began to patrol the Medicine Valley. After noon, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord won another game. He looked at Shinzi and said, "Little monk, want to play a round?" Shinzi responded, "Amit Ba, then I humbly seek your guidance." The disciples, seeing his exceptional aura, made way. After taking a seat, Shinzi made the first move. Having observed 3 games, he already knew the rules. With a smirk, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord adopted Guan's aura and played each move faster than the last. In just 30 minutes, Shinzi lost. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord asked proudly, "How was it? How do you find this game?" Shinzi pondered, "It truly contains profound principles. The small board encompasses myriad phenomena. Black and white swallowing each other resembles the competition of all things in heaven and earth, ever-changing. It can turn despair into hope and hide traps to kill, very intriguing." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord stood up, "Let's go somewhere else to chat. We shouldn't disturb the others playing Go." Shinzi nodded and stood up. The disciples sighed in relief. With Nine-Fingered Divine Lord gone, they could enjoy the fun of Go without his constant guidance. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord wasn't only formidable at playing but also loved to instruct them, making their game experience quite torturous. The two walked along the path in the Medicine Valley. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, gazing at the boundless sky, asked, "Little monk, why are you here? Just passing by or directed by the Bitter Sea Buddha sect?" With hands pressed together, Shinzi replied, "I am commanded to go to the sea-breaking rift. Passing by here, I sensed your presence, so I came to visit. I didn't expect to find other disciples of my sect in this supreme sect. Observing the chi fortune of this sect, perhaps you intend to support it?" Nine-Fingered Divine Lord laughed. "Supporting them? You haven't heard of Sword Venerable Fudao?" As Shinzi was about to inquire, his attention suddenly shifted to Yu Yingying, who was passing by at a distance. His brows immediately furrowed. Nine-Finger Divine Lord noticed his gaze and asked, "You saw her too. What will you do about it?" His tone was intriguing, as if eager for a spectacle. Taking a deep breath, Shinshinzi replied, "A demon should naturally be eradicated." Chapter 277 Reincarnation of the Heavenly Demon. Shinzinzi's terror. As Shinshinzi finished speaking, his eyes sharpened, and he actually stepped towards Yuanying. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord quickly grabbed him, scolding, "Do you really dare to act recklessly? This girl is from the Star Sea congregations, and besides, this place belongs to Sword Venerable Fudao. You better not cause trouble." Shinshinzi sternly said, "Exorcising demons is the duty of us disciples of the Buddhism sect. How can we neglect it out of fear of the strong?" He immediately shook off the Nine-Finger Divine Lord's hand, trying to break free. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord said in a deep voice, "There are countless demons in the world. This demon has not yet done any evil. How can you act directly? Don't forget your mission. There are greater calamities that require your intervention." He felt a headache coming on. How could this lad be even more stubborn than 10,000 years ago? Although he knew that Yuanying had no relation to Sword Venerable Fudao, causing trouble here would inevitably break the peace of Medicine Valley, something he did not wish to see happen. Shinshinzi frowned, his gaze fixed on Yuanying. Yuanying seemed to sense something and turned her head to look at Shinshinzi. Their gazes pierced through the endless white snow, colliding in midair. For some reason, upon seeing him, Yuanying inexplicably felt uncomfortable and a bit scared. She instinctively avoided Shinzinzi's gaze and ran away. After walking some distance, her panic did not subside, and she looked back instinctively, only to find Shinshinzi still staring at her, scaring her into quickening her pace. She hurriedly walked away in a daze until she bumped into someone, waking her up. She took a closer look and found that she had bumped into Guan amidst the falling snow. Guan stood in his blue robe, drifting with the wind. He held a mirror in his hand like a folding fan. The hair crown on his head reflected the light, and along with the gold pattern on his forehead, it made Yuanying stare in awe. For the first time, Yuanying felt that Guan had such an air of elegance. If there were truly immortals in this world, they would probably look like this. "What's wrong with you?" Guan asked. Of course, he knew what was going on, but he had to pretend to be oblivious. Yuanying snapped out of her daze and for some reason felt calmer in front of Guan. "Just now, a monk kept staring at me," Yuanying said aggrievedly. Guan laughed. "Aren't you the one who's fearless? How can you be afraid of a mere monk?" Yuanying glared. "I don't know why, I just felt uneasy under his gaze." "Uneasy? Did you do something guilty, stealing his cassock?" "Pa, do you take me for a black bear spirit?" With Guan's teasing, Yuanying completely relaxed. Guan walked towards his pavilion, followed closely by the Blood Prison Great Saint, who threw a disdainful glance at Yuanying. Yuanying instantly became furious and started cursing the Blood Prison Great Saint. The man and the ox began to argue, while Guan, used to it, couldn't be bothered to intervene. In the following days, Shinshinzi stayed at the Supreme Sect, investigating the disciples' impressions of Sword Venerable Fudao. 3 days passed quickly. Shinshinzi returned to Medicine Valley, having understood that Sword Venerable Fudao was righteous and cared for the common people, and would not prevent him from exorcising demons. Upon arriving at Medicine Valley, he encountered Yang Jian and Li Lingtian. Yang Jian was pulling Li Lingtian out, looking for a place to spar. Li Lingtian was very reluctant, but did not back down verbally. Seeing the two, Shinzinzi's gaze was fixed. He moved to block Yang Jian. Yang Jian looked at him, his brows slightly furrowed. Even now, suppressing his cultivation level, Yang Jian couldn't hide his extraordinary presence, showing the demeanor of a prodigy. Standing beside him, Li Lingtian appeared completely overshadowed. Glaring at Shinshinzi, Li Lingtian said disgruntledly, "Monk, what do you want?" Shinshinzi spoke. "Amitba, this poor monk sees that you both have remarkable auras and unique bones. Why not join our Bitter Sea Buddha sect and cultivate the great Tao?" Bitter Sea Buddha sect? Before Yang Jian could speak, Li Lingtian was already flustered. "You want us to become monks?" "Impossible. He was the crown prince. How could he become a monk? Monk is just a worldly term. Becoming a Buddha is the great Tao, which is eternal," Shinshinzi said calmly. Scratching his head, Li Lingtian thought that this guy was either crazy or genuinely capable of something. Suddenly he didn't dare to provoke him. In Medicine Valley he always encountered great cultivators, so he couldn't remain arrogant. Yang Jian said softly, "Thank you for your kind offer, but I already have a master and I don't wish to take another." Farewell. He bypassed Shin Shinzi and walked out of the valley. Li Lingtian quickly followed. Shin Shinzi watched their departing figures, contemplating something. Meanwhile, in the distance, beneath a pavilion, Guan and Ji Xiaoyu stood side by side, appreciating the snowy scenery. Ji Xiaoyu noticed Shin Shinzi and said, "That monk seems unusual. I wonder if he will cause trouble for Yang Jian." Although she had never sparred with Yang Jian, she felt he was extraordinary. Curious about how Guan had made Yang Jian so loyal, she learned that Yang Jian had been nurtured by Guan's elixir, gradually unlocking his talent, which made her admire Guan even more. Perhaps Guan's cultivation talent was ordinary, but his character deeply impressed her. Guan turned back. He is a high monk, how could he trouble Jianer? If anything, he would bring blessings, wouldn't he? Ji Xiaoyu glanced at him. Seeing the genuine smile on his face, she believed his words. They continued chatting casually. Eventually, Shin Shinzi still found Yu Ying. At first, she was very afraid of him, but he only asked her about some matters, which gradually made her lower her guard. Although Guan's gaze wasn't fixed on Shin Shinzi, his attention was always on him. If Yu Ying were outside and got caught by Shin Shinzi, he wouldn't intervene, but not in Medicine Valley. Guan thought Shin Shinzi wouldn't harm Yu Ying, but he was wrong. Late at night, Yu Ying was meditating and cultivating in her room. The candlelight reflected her shadow on the wall, swaying slightly. Suddenly sensing something, she opened her eyes to see a figure entering her sight, startling her so much she instinctively crawled backward, hitting the wall. "What do you want?" Yu Ying asked nervously, her voice loud, clearly trying to alert others. Standing by the bed, Shin Shinzi looked down at Yu Ying with a serious expression. "Don't waste your efforts. I have set up a barrier. No one can hear your cries, nor can you escape." Shin Zinzi's gaze was oppressive, and his tone was cold. Yu Ying gritted her teeth and asked, "Who are you? What grudge do you have with me?" "Ba, we have no personal grudge. This poor monk can let you die knowing the reason. You are the reincarnation of a heavenly demon. Once your cultivation reaches the primordial spirit stage, you will regain memories of your past life and bring calamity to the world." Shin Shinzi replied. Upon hearing this, Yu Ying's expression changed dramatically, but instead of arguing, she sat dazedly on the bed, looking desolate. "I see," she murmured, a bitter smile appearing on her face. She closed her eyes, preparing to accept her fate. Shin Shinzi closed his eyes and raised his right hand, ready to end Yu Ying's life. But suddenly, a hand pressed on Shin Zinzi's shoulder, causing his eyes to snap open, his Buddha heart trembling. This indescribable feeling made him inexplicably fearful. Having faced countless formidable demons, even in defeat, he had never felt this way. He was shocked to find himself unable to move, his mana suppressed and inactive. He immediately thought of someone. Sword Venerable Fudao. Legend had it that in a book, it was written that Sword Venerable Fudao would lightly tap the shoulder before killing someone. He had thought it was just a tale, but it turned out to be true. Outsiders are not permitted to kill within the Supreme Sect. Guan's voice reached Shin Zinzi's ears, hoarse and indifferent, carrying an undeniable authority. Next, Shin Shinzi felt the hand on his shoulder disappear, an immense relief flooding over him. He exhaled deeply, his forehead drenched in cold sweat, unable to remain calm. In that brief moment he truly thought he would die. Looking again at Yu Ying, his eyes were complex. Ba. Shin Zinzi's voice rang out, followed by the sound of the door opening. Yu Ying opened her eyes to see that Shin Shinzi had vanished. Thinking about his earlier tone, it seemed he was sighing. However, Yu Ying felt no relief from the brush with death. Instead, she remained despondent. The reincarnation of a heavenly demon. Having grown up in the Star Sea congregations, she had heard tales of the heavenly demon. No wonder her father was reluctant to teach her cultivation. When he heard she was coming to the Supreme Sect, he was pleased, fearing she might implicate him. That night, Yu Ying leaned against the wall, lost in thought. The next morning, she tidied herself up before leaving the house. Seeing the disciples of Medicine Valley exercising, their faces brimming with smiles, she felt as though she were in a different world, suddenly somewhat envious. These people might not have natural talent or prominent origins, but at least they could look forward to their future. And what about her? Born unlucky, unloved by her father, shunned by her mother, everyone saw her as a curse. She spotted Shin Shinzi. He stood under a tree watching the disciples exercise, deep in thought. He didn't turn his head despite her gaze. Does he pity me or is he afraid of dirtying his hands? Yu Yingying stood there stunned. After the morning exercises ended and the disciples dispersed, she still stood at the entrance. Time passed unknowingly. Guan rode the blood prison Great Saint past her yard and shouted, "Ms. Yu, what are you daydreaming about? If you have nothing to do, go shovel the snow with them. Since you live in my medicine valley, you should at least help out, right?" Yu Yingying snapped out of it, and seeing Guan's slightly displeased face, she instinctively nodded in agreement. Guan showed a satisfied expression, tossed her a look that said good thinking, and continued on his way with the blood prison Great Saint. At that moment, Yu Yingying came to her senses, recalling Guan's arrogant expression. She couldn't help but stomp her feet, muttering, "Making me do the chores." Although she cursed, her heart wasn't angry. She suddenly thought, there's no place for her in the world, but this medicine valley accepted her. She's not that miserable after all. The worst-case scenario, she would never cultivate, live a few hundred years like Guan, and then die. As for where she'd go in the next life, she didn't care anymore. In the next life she wouldn't be her. Chapter 278 Lord of all realms, head of immortal Shinxinzi stood under the tree, also lost in thought. Unlike Yu Yingying, who had already come to terms with things, he was still puzzled. He was shocked by Sword Venerable Fudao's power and doubted his own thoughts. Based on his investigation these past few days, Sword Venerable Fudao absolutely was a great power who cared for the common people, capable of correcting a sect's behavior and reaching out to save the world. With Sword Venerable Fudao's cultivation level, he surely could see through Yu Yingying's karmic ties. Did he really not want anyone causing slaughter in the Supreme Sect, or did he think Yu Yingying shouldn't be killed? Shenzhen's mind was in turmoil until Nine-Fingered Divine Lord came to Medicine Valley to play Go, and only then was he awakened by him. "Why are you in such a state? Did you encounter Sword Venerable Fudao?" Nine-Fingered Divine Lord asked with a smile, standing before Shinxinzi. Shinxinzi closed his eyes and uttered a "Ba." The smile faded from Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's face. He frowned, his expression serious, and said in a deep voice, "You really dared to act? Are you courting death? I've heard that Divine Strange Ghost King Heaven Unpredictable was directly crushed by Sword Venerable Fudao, and it is said that Heaven Unpredictable had already reached the pinnacle of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm." Shinxinzi still kept his eyes closed, seemingly indifferent. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord noticed his left hand trembling within his sleeve. This kid wasn't scared half to death, was he? Nine-Fingered Divine Lord thought to himself, and suddenly found it amusing. It was rare to see him this frightened. "Come, let's play Go. There is wisdom in black and white that can help you understand." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord pulled Shinxinzi along, chattering as they walked. "I have to say, Guan does have a certain divine nature. To create such a profound game of Go, either he has an extraordinary master behind him, or he was guided in his dreams by an immortal." Shinxinzi in a daze did not really listen. However, in the following days, through playing Go, the anxiety and confusion in his mind began to dissipate, and he also came to understand Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's words. This game of Go was indeed extraordinary. The cold winter finally passed, and the spring festival of the Supreme Sect came around once more. It was worth mentioning that, through the promotion of Li Xiandao, people across the world had begun to celebrate the spring festival. In the third Medicine Valley, Li Lingtian stood beside Yang Jian, his hands on his hips as he looked at Shinxinzi under the distant tree, frowning. Why hasn't that monk left yet? Is he planning to stay here? Yang Jian was making lanterns beside him and replied nonchalantly, "He can stay if he wants, it's none of your business. My master hasn't chased you away either." Li Lingtian glared and said, "I'm different. I am your master's junior brother, and your master has the best relationship with my brother, the emperor." Yang Jian suddenly looked at him and asked, "By the way, have you heard from your emperor brother? He is cultivating among the Star Sea congregations and should be acquainted with An Hao, right?" "No contact yet, but he does have a good relationship with An Hao. Both are already legendary geniuses in the Supreme Sect. Speaking of which, I haven't seen them in person. Perhaps my emperor brother doesn't even know of my existence." Li Lingtian replied. When he mentioned Li Ya, a trace of envy entered his tone. "You could follow in your emperor brother's footsteps. I've heard that the Taizong dynasty and the Star Sea congregations have also established a friendly cooperation. Your father, the emperor, must have some way. Forget it, it's better to cultivate with you. To be honest, I think you are the strongest genius in the world. My emperor brother and An Hao are nothing compared to you." Li Lingtian looked at Yang Jian seriously and said, expressing his genuine thoughts, In this lifetime he admired Yang Jian the most. Not only was his talent unparalleled, but he also had the patience to cultivate diligently, avoiding the pursuit of empty fame. There's no way I'm the strongest, and I also have a goal to pursue. Yang Jian shook his head and laughed. A goal to pursue? Li Lingtian was immediately intrigued and began to ask, but unfortunately Yang Jian would not say. Elsewhere, Guan approached Shen Xinzi. At this moment, Shen Xinzi was sitting on the ground, engrossed in Journey to the West. Taoist friend, the festival is approaching. Would you like to join us? Guan asked with a smile. Shen Xinzi came to his senses, quickly got up and saluted Guan, saying, Amitabha, thank you for the invitation. As a humble monk, I dare not refuse. What can I do to help? Guan waved his hand with a smile. You are a guest, there's no need for you to do anything. Of course, if you are in the mood and have time to guide the disciples in the valley, I would be grateful. Shen Xinzi couldn't help but ask out of curiosity, Benefactor, what do you wish to learn? Not for me but for the disciples in the valley. Doesn't the benefactor seek the Mahayana Buddhist teachings and the immortal destiny? Me? Forget it. My current life is pretty good. I don't want to go out fighting and killing. I have a senior brother named Li Ya, who holds an immortal path supreme treasure. He's incredibly powerful, but unfortunately only I know the hardships he faces behind the glory. I'm timid by nature and dare not kill people, so it's best for me to stay in Medicine Valley. Guan laughed freely, causing Shen Xinzi to look at him with admiration. They chatted for a while before Guan took his leave. Shen Xinzi watched his departing figure, filled with deep emotions. This Medicine Valley, though small, was truly fascinating. There were great cultivators who had achieved unparalleled heights, extraordinarily talented juniors, ill-fated disaster stars, and a valley master who had seen through life. If he were to cultivate Buddhist teachings here, it might bring him greater enlightenment. However, unfortunately he still had to head to the sea-breaking rift. If he could survive and return, he could cultivate here for hundreds of years. Shen Xinzi silently thought, no longer caring about eliminating Yuanying. With a great power like Sword Venerable Fudao watching over her, she shouldn't cause any trouble. In the palace, Anhao stood up and saluted his master, Sage Fuchen. Sage Fuchen looked at Anhao with a sigh. Howard, I didn't expect you to have such a formidable master. As your teacher, I am basking in your glory. He had already learned about the incident where Heaven Unpredictable attacked the Star Sea congregations, and he was shocked. He didn't expect Anhao to have such a significant background. Master, you have taught me to cultivate and taken care of me. I will always remember your kindness. Anhao replied seriously. Ever since Sword Venerable Fudao intervened, Anhao's status within the Star Sea congregations had completely changed. Often, great cultivators visited him, showing care and concern, and even some noble families sought to introduce female disciples to him as Taoist friends, though he politely declined. Anhao already had someone in his heart, but to him, nothing compared to the immortal cultivation path, so he had severed that relationship. His master saved him from the jaws of a monster, not to let him indulge in love. He must reach the pinnacle of the immortal path and not let his master down. Sage Fuchen smiled with satisfaction and then began to talk about the sea-breaking rift. In the sea-breaking rift, more divine exotic resentful ghosts were appearing, and the 9 divine exotic ghost kings were gathering. The great sects were preparing to launch a joint attack on the divine exotic realm, and he had returned for this reason. As he listened to his master describe the various bizarre and wonderful sights within the divine exotic realm, Anhao became interested, wanting to explore it himself. However, he ultimately suppressed the urge, knowing that time was precious and he had to devote all his time to cultivation to become capable as soon as possible. If this great battle goes smoothly, the world-destroying sea tide will not erupt, which is an immense achievement. Sage Fuchen said with burning eyes. Achievement? But what use was that? Sage Fuchen began to introduce the Holy Court, which broadened Anhao's horizons, as he learned there was a ruling power in the mortal world. The land of 10,000 immortals, it sounded imposing. When Sage Fuchen spoke of the Lord of the Holy Court, Xingtian, Anhao fell into endless imagination. The Lord of the Holy Court, ruling the mortal world, how powerful must that be? Wouldn't that be akin to the Heavenly Emperor in the Investiture of the Gods, or the Jade Emperor in Journey to the West? Anhao's name also had Hao in it. Could he not become the Lord of all realms, the head of immortals one day? A flame of unparalleled ambition ignited in Anhao's heart. Since he was on the path of immortal cultivation, how could he not strive for the supreme throne? Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye 12 years had passed. In the summer, in a city, Guan walked on the street in a green robe, accompanied by a woman clad in white, with a hat and veil concealing her face. This woman was Ji Xiaoyu. Why come to this city? Ji Xiaoyu curiously asked. At the beginning of the year she had told Guan she wanted to go out and see the mortal world and comprehend the Tao, hoping Guan could accompany her. Initially, Guan did not agree, but she kept bringing it up and he eventually gave in. One of my junior brothers lives in this city. Guan answered, then recounted his acquaintance with Xiaochuan. Ji Xiaoyu listened attentively, her heart touched. Indeed, not everyone had her extraordinary talent. Most people's spirit root qualifications were average, just like those in the Third Medicine Valley. Xiaochuan's decision to give up the immortal path deeply moved her. Of course, she only admired Xiaochuan's determination. She would never give up on immortal cultivation. They chatted as they walked. They entered an inn and went to a window seat on the second floor. Ji Xiaoyu asked, "If Xiaochuan passes away first, will you be sad?" Guan was already a core formation realm cultivator, certain to outlive Xiaochuan. Guan smiled, "If he leaves without regret, I won't be sad. Even if he passes, I will always hold a place for him in my heart." Ji Xiaoyu nodded. Guan teased, "If I pass away, will you be sad?" Ji Xiaoyu didn't console him but thought through the question seriously and replied, "I will feel sad, but it won't affect my emotions. I too will eventually reach the end. We will both enter reincarnation, it's just a matter of who goes first. You have a clear perspective, not disappointing my teachings over the years. What have you taught me? My words, my actions, they influence you." "True." Ji Xiaoyu nodded in agreement, making Guan smile more broadly. This girl was so easily tricked. She was even more fun than in their past lives. Just as Guan was about to speak, a sound of breaking through the air came from the sky. "Make way. Make way." A rude voice echoed above the city, drawing Guan and Ji Xiaoyu's attention. They turned to see a sea dragon flying low, stirring up debris along its path. On the sea dragon's head stood a young boy. Chapter 279. The Remarkable Pan. And looking at the sea dragon, Guan felt that its aura was somewhat familiar, so he paid closer attention. "Ah, isn't this the same aura as that of Sky Dragon?" "But it certainly isn't Sky Dragon. Sky Dragon is currently serving as the holy beast of ancient Sky sect, and according to Guan's divine sense, that fellow is still snoozing." Guan began to probe the sea dragon's causality and quickly understood its origins. It turned out to be a snake demon that had acquired the true blood of Sky Dragon and had just shed its old skin to transform into a sea dragon, leaping forward in talent. Guan's eyes shifted to the youth sitting atop the sea dragon's head and executed a lifespan detection. Su Jin, Foundation Establishment Realm, 9 layers 32/350/3080, a lifespan limited to 3080 years. In the past, would surely be considered a rare talent, but in the present world, it could only be said to be talented, though not top tier. Su Jin, dressed in white robes, splendid and regal, donning an intricate hair crown, looked vibrant and energetic, appearing to be only 16 or 17 years old. The sea dragon beneath his feet, Tenjiang Long, stirred up a strong wind as it flew low, lifting tiles off buildings, palaces, and even lanterns and sunshades off the streets, causing much chaos wherever it passed. Ji Xiaoyu frowned as she watched, raising her cup, preparing to take action. Guan held her hand, smiling, "Don't be hasty." Ji Xiaoyu turned to him and said, "This is a city of mortals, though there are some cultivators, they are few and far between. How could they stop that?" Before she could finish, the sound of a sword being drawn echoed throughout the city. Immediately after, the sea dragon let out a piercing scream as blood gushed from its spine, plummeting towards the street. The commoners on the street scurried away in panic, while Su Jin, atop the sea dragon's head, was flustered. He quickly leaped off, landing on a nearby rooftop. He had just landed when a sword was placed against his neck, causing his pupils to dilate in terror, and beads of cold sweat to stream down his face. "Who are you? What do you want?" Su Jin asked tremulously, followed by a voice behind him, "So brazen and reckless, are you trying to disregard Taikang's laws?" Inside the inn, Guan withdrew his gaze and looked at Ji Xiaoyu, smiling. "See? The one who had taken action was a nascent soul realm cultivator who practiced the art of concealing their aura, which is why Ji Xiaoyu had not noticed." Ji Xiaoyu took a deep look at the sword cultivator and then turned to Guan. "Today's emperor truly acts decisively. I thought his laws aimed at cultivators were just for show, but I was wrong. they are indeed enforced. That sword cultivator's aura is not simple. The moment he drew his sword, the sword intent was strong. Guwen said, nowadays the Taizong dynasty could be described as a place where dragons hide and tigers lie dormant, anywhere you could find a great cultivator. But we both have core formation realm cultivation, why could you sense his presence and I could not? How could you ask that? Shall I tell you that you are not as good as me? Please, I am at least 156 years older than you. I heard you used to be a golden list genius but always said your talents were lacking. It seems now that you might have been playing the fool. You're right about that, I truly am, in fact, an immortal living incognito in the mortal world. Hee. Ji Xiaoyu gave Guwen a glance but she was also amused by him. The two continued to drink and chat, no longer paying attention to Su Jin and the Sea Dragon. In the end, both Su Jin and the Sea Dragon were taken away by the nascent soul sword cultivator, to the cheers of the commoners. Over the following days, Guwen and Ji Xiaoyu strolled through the city. They even visited Xiaochuan's residence but only stood on the rooftop to look without disturbing Xiaochuan. Now that Xiaochuan had settled down with a family and children, his life was complete. After 2 days in the city they left to visit other places. Because Guwen was concerned about medicinal herbs, this journey only lasted half a month, which was quite fulfilling for Ji Xiaoyu. With Guwen's company she witnessed the vicissitudes of life. Guwen shared his life experiences to resolve her doubts, benefiting her greatly. Time flew by. At the end of summer, Guwen brought Yang Jian to Immortal Seeking Island. Ever since his visit to the divine exotic realm, Immortal Seeking Island was no longer invaded by divine exotic resentful ghosts. There were still many at sea but not as numerous as before and mostly acted alone. Just on entering the city, Guwen and Yang Jian heard the cultivators discussing the battle at the sea-breaking rift. This battle had been raging for more than a year. Shin Shinzi, who sought to kill Yu Yingying before, also joined the battle representing the Bitter Sea Buddha sect. Those divine exotic ghost kings are truly troublesome, immortal and indestructible. Indeed, it's said that more than 1,000 loose immortals have fallen in the sea-breaking rift over the years, and heaven knows how many cultivators below the loose immortal realm have perished. Falling is not to be feared, but to become a divine exotic resentful ghost after falling and then turn against us, that's the true horror. Who knows how well ever resolve this cataclysm. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect is indeed capable of delivering the divine exotic resentful ghosts, but they are too few in number. The most formidable divine monk is Shin Shinzi, who has encountered a curse and his fate is unknown. Upon hearing Shin Zinzi's name, Yang Jian looked towards Guwen. Guwen conveyed through psychic transmission. Yes, that's the monk who visited Medicine Valley before. Yang Jian had sensed that Shin Shinzi was extraordinary, but he did not expect the monk to be so well known. Soon, Hu Shaojian arrived and greeted them as usual, leading them to purchase medicinal herbs. Predecessor, I heard that Tang Hai and others encountered danger in the sea-breaking rift and their fate is unclear, Hu Shaojian said cautiously. Guwen replied calmly, everyone has their own destiny. Different choices lead to different fates. As immortal cultivators they would have been prepared. Hu Shaojian nodded, contemplating the might of the divine exotic ghost king. Currently, aside from Sword Venerable Fudao, no second individual or demon has been able to suppress a divine exotic ghost king alone. The longer the disaster caused by the sea-breaking rift lasts, the more it confirms the strength of Sword Venerable Fudao. Although Sword Venerable Fudao has not joined in the battle within the sea-breaking rift, many believe that the reduction in the number of divine exotic resentful ghosts at sea and the retreat of divine exotic ghost kings back into the rift is related to Sword Venerable Fudao. Guwen remained silent while Yang Jian engaged in brisk conversation with Hu Shaojian. By the way, there's a popular book at sea called Journey to the West. Have you read it? Hu Shaojian suddenly recalled and asked. Yang Jian nodded, I have. What about it? He was moved, feeling proud that his master was not only profound in cultivation but also preeminent in talent, for his book to spread so far. Guwen was also surprised as he secretly calculated. It turned out that the Star Sea congregations played a significant role, and another person was also helping to promote Journey to the West, who was none other than Shin Shinzi. Interesting. Guwen wasn't afraid of trouble. Now he had the power to protect himself. Of course, it would be better if no one disturbed him. As Hu Shaojian brought up Journey to the West, he began to enthusiastically explain that the book had spread throughout the seas, praised by many sects. Besides those cultivators who were always in seclusion, most of those active at sea had read it. Some felt that the immortal divine world depicted in the book was fascinating, others thought the book reflected reality, and some even considered it a history book. Investiture of the Gods wasn't as popular as Journey to the West, but some, like Hu Shaojin, would read Investiture of the Gods after learning about Journey to the West. Through Journey to the West, Hu Shaojin also mentioned the great sects and cultivators of the seas, leaving Yang Jian in awe. How vast was this world really? 2 ancient hours later, the master and disciple duo returned to the supreme sect. Walking through the woods, Yang Jian became more talkative. Master, between Impermanence Tian and the divine exotic ghost king, who is stronger? Yang Jian curiously asked. He had heard from Hu Shaojin about Sword Venerable Fu Dao appearing within the Star Sea congregations to confront a divine exotic ghost king, so he was intrigued. Hu Shaojin didn't know the details due to his lower status. He did not know the name of that divine exotic ghost king nor why Sword Venerable Fu Dao acted, but he was aware of the event. Although Yang Jian was no longer disturbed by Impermanence Tian, he still felt an inherent pressure, thinking that he would inevitably face him one day. Guan casually replied, "As your master, I am also unclear. When you face him in the future you will know. I hope he comes later rather than sooner. With his level of cultivation, what he calls soon might be in hundreds or thousands of years, so don't worry too much." Right, I will definitely not slack off. Yang Jian was full of fighting spirit, and he actually had another question he wanted to ask. That was, what realm had his master reached? His master claimed to be a loose immortal, but from what Hu Shaojin said, Sword Venerable Fu Dao obviously seemed much stronger than a loose immortal. He also wanted to ask about the cultivation realm of that fellow senior brother. But he dared not ask. If the master did not say it, there must be a reason. Inside the palace, and how slowly opened his eyes, exhaling a long breath of foul air. A figure suddenly appeared beside the pool, none other than Qi Jiuxiao. Qi Jiuxiao looked at Hao and marveled, void crossing realm 9 layers. Impressive young man. To have such cultivation at just over 100 years old is indeed terrifying. Although my sect has invested a lot in you, you have absorbed it all so quickly, truly proving your talent is unmatched in the world. And Hao looked at him and said, above the void crossing realm are the unification and mystic heart. To reach the Mahayana realm by 500 would not be considered quick. Qi Jiuxiao rolled his eyes and said, with your current pace, reaching the Mahayana realm by 500 would be a breeze. I even suspect that you could achieve nirvana before 500. Your innate talent is unimaginable. As he said this, his tone also revealed a hint of envy. And Hao shook his head, my master has taken another disciple. He says his talent is not inferior to mine, and honestly I fear he might catch up with me. Mentioning Sword Venerable Fu Dao, Qi Jiuxiao immediately sat cross-legged, curious. Who exactly is your master and which sect is he from? Don't tell me he's from the Supreme Sect. With such cultivation, if he's not from the Holy Court, he must be from one of the mortal world's leading Qi fortune sects. I truly don't know, and Hao admitted helplessly. Even if he did know, he wouldn't reveal it. Qi Jiuxiao glanced at him and then pulled out several books from within his robes, offering, take a look at Journey to the West, it's also from the Supreme Sect. This book has become wildly popular at sea, and it's even made me consider another trip to the Supreme Sect. Journey to the West? And Hao looked at the book in Qi Jiuxiao's hands. He had already heard about the book, written by Pan and of the Supreme Sect. He knew who Pan and was, his junior sister was even under Pan An's mentorship. And Hao couldn't help but recall his first encounter with Guan when they witnessed LV Badian returning to peak form, exhibiting a formidable cultivation level. But Guan's cultivation and talents seemed so ordinary, and such an ordinary person had managed to spread his fame all the way to the seas. Truly remarkable. Chapter 280 Destiny. After returning to the Third Medicine Valley with Yang Jian, Guan did not immediately go upstairs but instead found an Xian to inquire after her health with particular concern for her cultivation practice. Enzin's maximum lifespan was 230 years, she could still wait for several decades before lifting the restrictions on her cultivation level. Over the years, Guan had also given her a number of elixirs, she might even surpass Yi Lan. Master, have you heard any news of my elder disciple brother and how recently? An Xian suddenly asked. Although it had been a long time since she had last seen Hao, their relationship had not become estranged. After all, they had grown up together since childhood and even experienced life and death. She knew that she and Hao belonged to two different worlds in the future, but occasionally she could not help but be concerned for him. Knowing he was safe was enough. Guan picked up a teacup from the table and replied, "He's doing quite well. He has now become the foremost talent of the Star Sea congregations and has cultivated the awe-inspiring flame primordial treasure body." This intelligence had been mentioned to him by LV Badian before, so now when he spoke of it, he wouldn't reveal his true cultivation level. Anexan listened intently, her face brimming with smiles. She didn't feel the slightest envy for Inhao's achievements, even though both had started immortal cultivation on the same day. The gap in their talents was simply too large. Sometimes she even doubted whether she truly knew Inhao, and so she would not mention knowing Inhao in her daily interactions with others. Now things were going well. She lived carefree within Medicine Valley. Though there was no hope of pursuing the immortal path, at least her days were fulfilling and interesting. After Guan finished speaking, Anexan propped her cheeks with both hands and laughed. "My elder disciple brother is truly impressive. It's hard to imagine what kind of great figure he will become in the future." Guan smiled and said, "Then practice hard and strive to see a further future." Anexan nodded and then brought up the white spirit rat, her face filled with indignation. As the white spirit rat grew stronger in cultivation, it became increasingly difficult for her to control, and now it would only listen to Guan inside Medicine Valley. It was practically a tyrant, often playing tricks on the disciples. Of course, the white spirit rat was just mischievous and wouldn't harm the disciples, which was also the reason Guan couldn't be bothered to discipline it. There was one time when the white spirit rat accidentally injured an Xian and was severely beaten by Guan. It never dared to hurt people again. Guan chatted with an Xian about the trivial matters of Medicine Valley. After spending the first half of the day concerned with the significant affairs of the world, he now talked about the small matters of the valley, a contrast he found quite amusing. Days passed one by one. Autumn winds blew into Medicine Valley. Inside the house, Guan leaned on a chair holding a book in his hands. It was about talismans. Now and then he would read some books on Taoist sorcery. With his current state, most of the Taoist sorcery techniques of the mortal world seem simple to him. The reason geniuses enjoy reading is that being able to understand brings enjoyment. Suddenly Guan's brow furrowed. Liya was tapping into the power of divine exotic city. Wasn't Liya in retreat, cultivating with the Star Sea congregations? Immediately, Guan closed his eyes, discovering that Liya was in fact in the sea-breaking rift, currently being suppressed by a divine exotic ghost king. Liya was not alone. Surrounding him were many cultivators from diverse sections. Even if Liya possessed the power of divine exotic city, he could not possibly defeat the divine exotic ghost king. The power of an immortal path supreme treasure was indeed formidable but correlated with the cultivation level of the user. The stronger the realm, the more prominently the supreme treasure's power would display. Guan had no intention of intervening. As long as Liya did not die, it was normal for him to suffer a bit. Traversing the immortal cultivation world, who could expect smooth sailing? Yet, he sensed another presence and could not help but lament the terrifying power of fate. In the divine exotic realm, within a realm of minor heaven and earth. Beneath a crimson sky, dust flew across the land like dragons and phoenixes contorting while innumerable divine exotic resentful ghosts swirled like moths, densely packed, enough to make one's scalp tingle. A divine exotic ghost king stood proudly in the sky, his countenance fierce with symmetrical bloodstains on his cheeks and his long white hair fluttering like flames. With 6 arms brandishing different weapons, he stood atop a 1,000-meter-high ghost beast, suspended in mid-air. This beast too floated in the air, its lion-tiger body, leopard-like head, and 3 tails stirring clouds and mist with every sway. Looking along the direction of the divine exotic ghost king's gaze, one could see beneath the swirling dust a massive city. It was divine exotic city. The city spanned 100 miles, standing against the relentless tide of divine exotic resentful ghosts. Inside, thousands of cultivators gazed up at the sky with expressions of anger, fear, and hatred. Atop the tallest spire in the city, Liya in black stood on the summit, with a pitch-black figure atop his shoulder, the divine exotic immortal spirit. Liya had furrowed brows, his expression stern. Divine exotic city has actually fallen into the hands of a minor immortal cultivation of the divinity transformation realm. Boy, aren't you feeling overwhelmed? Strong as divine exotic city is, how can your frail body exert its divine power? The divine exotic ghost king sneered. His name was Zhen Ludao, and with his cultivation of the 9 layers of the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, he viewed Liya as no different from an ant. Hearing his words, Liya remained silent. Arguing was meaningless. How to survive this calamity was his concern. His hands hidden within his sleeves clenched tightly, and he began to bleed from his nose. Several cultivators in the city noticed this scene, as did Shinzi, who was meditating on a street. His brows furrowed at the sight. Shinzi looked off into the distance at Zhen Ludao, struggle flickering in his eyes. After taunting for a while and receiving no response from Liya, Zhen Ludao became annoyed. Lifting an arm, in his hand he held a black mirror which swirled with dark mist. A figure leapt from the mirror, quickly growing to nearly Zhen Ludao's size. It was a white-haired man. Liya's pupils dilated at the sight, his face shifting with various emotions, ultimately contorting in rage, eyes filled with fury. "You dare to turn him into," Liya said through gritted teeth. His aura erupted suddenly with wisps of blood seeping from his pores. "Divine exotic immortal spirit, mobilize the mightiest power of divine exotic city, I will kill him." Liya roared inwardly, unable to contain his rage. The white-haired man was none other than Zhang Buku. At this moment, Zhang Buku had transformed into a divine exotic resentful ghost. His clothes tattered, his expression cold. He looked down upon Liya without the slightest emotional fluctuation in his eyes. As Zhen Ludao watched Liya rage, he burst into laughter, saying, "I merely caught a snippet of karma from you all. I hadn't realized he meant so much to you. How about it, care to keep him company? This is the chance of immortality." Liya didn't answer. Instead, he turned to look at the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder and shouted, "Didn't you hear me? I want you to kill him." The divine exotic immortal spirit shuddered with fright and hastily invoked even stronger power. A thunderous rumbling, divine exotic city trembled. The protective light that enveloped the entire city burst forth with countless rainbows of light, all aimed at Zhen Ludao. The three-tailed ghost beast let out a ferocious roar, the very firmament shook, and it forcibly blocked the power from divine exotic city. Liya spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes bleeding. He clenched his teeth and said, "Continue." The divine exotic immortal spirit hesitated for a moment and then gestured. The power of those light rainbows surged, overbearing the howls of the three-tailed ghost beast, drawing ever closer to it. Zhen Ludao was taken aback and became interested. Liya bled from his 7 orifices, his spine began to bend, but his gaze remained fixated above, wishing he could tear Zhen Ludao to pieces. Amitofo. Laymanly, there's no need for further effort, striving in vain is useless. The voice of Shinzi suddenly rang through the heavens, serious in tone. A golden light rose from within the city, piercing through the protective light and going straight through the neck of the three-tailed ghost beast, which, despite struggling instinctively, could not dissipate the golden light. Shinzi looked at Zhen Ludao, his eyes flickering with interest. The golden light unveiled a long golden staircase with Shinzi ascending from the bottom. His body radiated with Buddhist light, and the prayer beads in his hand were aflame. Liya couldn't help but look at him, surprised. "Laymanly, you are still young, let this humble monk be the one to sacrifice. As the saying goes in the journey to the west by the womb of the earth Bodhisattva, if I don't enter hell, who will? Do not lose your sanity over the passing of an old friend. Keep this rage in your heart and let it fuel your fighting spirit." Shinzi spoke firmly. As his words fell, he stepped out from the light of divine exotic city. His Buddhist light surged wildly, engulfing Zhen Ludao and the three-tailed ghost beast like a tidal wave. In the eyes of Liya and the cultivators in the city, a giant golden prayer bead phantom appeared in the sky, trapping Zhen Ludao and his mount within with an inconceivable method. The giant prayer bead phantom suddenly vanished, and with it the figures of Zhen Ludao and the three-tailed ghost beast. Around the world, the divine exotic resentful ghosts came to a halt, and after a moment of silence, they quickly dispersed, like fish scattering invisibly into the void. Liya then knelt on the summit, slowly bowing his head, murmuring, "Zhang, no." Before he could finish, he collapsed. The world grew dim by the seashore. Zhen Ludao dragged Shinzin's head, pulling his body across the sand. He journeyed to the divine exotic life tablet and tossed Shinzi to the ground. He complained, "Realm Master, why won't you let me eat him? Just because he's from the Bitter Sea Buddha sect? Do you really need to be so cautious?" The voice of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm came out from the Divine Exotic Life Tablet. "He has significant karma, you must not kill him. Also, you may not kill anyone with close karma to Zhang Buku." Zhen Ludao's demeanor changed, a sudden flare of anger emerging as he glared, "Why? The being called Destroyer of Heavens has personally requested that I protect Zhang Buku. Hearing this, Zhen Ludao paused, then sank into silence. Taking a deep breath, he said no more and turned to leave. Once he disappeared, the master of divine exotic realm emerged from the life tablet, approached Shin Shinzi and looked down, murmuring, "A reincarnation of a heavenly demon. What exactly is the Bitter Sea Buddha sect scheming?" He lifted his right hand and began healing Shin Shinzi with his own divine power. Meanwhile, back in Medicine Valley, Guan withdrew his attention. The master of divine exotic realm was sensible. If he dared to cause trouble, risk or not, Guan would have had to intervene. But the thought of Zhang Buku becoming a divine exotic resentful ghost made Guan sigh. He couldn't constantly watch over Zhang Buku. The last time he detected Zhang Buku in the divine exotic realm, Zhang Buku had already transformed into a resentful ghost, fortunately retaining a sliver of will. If the master of divine exotic realm were to be obliterated, then all the divine exotic resentful ghosts would vanish as well. That meant Zhang Buku was now tied to the fate of the realm master. Chapter 281. The Enlightened Master. Guan. 2 years had passed since Li Ya and Zhang Buku had met. In those 2 years, the seas continued to surge with activity. Countless cultivators and demons rushed into the sea-breaking rift. Such strife never ceased. Some found their fateful breakthroughs while others fell with regret. The Supreme Sect had been peaceful, with the majority of its disciples diligently pursuing their cultivation. Days in Medicine Valley were even more serene. On this day, Guan arrived early in Mystic Valley, waiting for someone who was soon to appear. Near noontime, dressed in black, Li Ya descended from the sky, landing below the pavilion. This time, he didn't enter through the window but stood beneath it, gazing at Guan's windowsill, silent for a long time without taking a step forward. The blood prison great saint, lying on the ground, watched him with a peculiar look in its eyes. It could feel that his mood was very low, and his entire being seemed dispirited and lost. "Senior brother Li, why have you come?" Lu Jiujia hurried over, asking excitedly. Li Ya snapped out of his trance and looked towards him, managing a strained smile. "I came to see your senior brother Gu. He's upstairs. Usually he doesn't spend much time in Mystic Valley, but today he's been here all morning. So he was waiting for you after all," Lu Jiujia remarked with a sigh. He could obviously tell something was off with Li Ya, hence his words. Li Ya nodded at him, then ascended the stairs. Upon reaching the second floor, he pushed open the door and entered. Guan, who was seated in a chair, put down the Supreme Secret Records book he had been reading and looked at Li Ya, exclaiming with surprise, "Senior brother Li, what brings you here?" Looking at Guan, Li Ya's eyes suddenly reddened. He closed the door behind him, then walked over to the desk, clenching his fists tightly and gritting his teeth. Guan's smile faded as he asked anxiously, "What's wrong? What happened?" Li Ya dared not meet Guan's gaze because Zhang Buku had once said that Guan was his only senior relative. Zhang Buku, Li Ya started with difficulty. What happened to him? Guan stood up abruptly. Li Ya took a deep breath and recounted what had happened to Zhang Buku. After listening, Guan collapsed in his chair, looking just as dispirited, deepening Li Ya's distress. "Wait, you said he became a divine exotic resentful ghost, which means he's still here, isn't he?" Guan asked urgently as if grasping at a thought. Li Ya turned his head and replied, "He's still here, but becoming a divine exotic resentful ghost means he's no longer who he was. He's become a monster that devours living spirits, never to know freedom," Guan countered. "Did you see him do that?" Li Ya froze for a moment, then looked at him. Guan's expression became calm as he said, "Buku has always had a tough life, carrying the burden of half of the demon clan's bloodline, but he has managed to survive till now. Why can't he turn misfortune into safety this time?" "But," Li Ya stammered. "Senior brother, this incident isn't your fault. He chose to venture into the sea-breaking rift himself. Don't carry too much burden. Besides, I truly believe he can turn danger into safety." "Junior brother Gu, Li Ya began. "Look at you. If Buku saw you like this, he would surely laugh at you. Aren't you brothers who have gone through life and death together? Do you intend to join him in death? You must have faith in him. He will definitely be able to turn danger into safety. If you don't cultivate diligently, you might even fall behind him. After every great adversity comes great fortune. Don't underestimate him." Guan said with a smile, a look of anticipation on his face. Li Ya knew Guan was comforting him, but he couldn't help but think, What if Zhang Buku truly could overcome this peril? Guan invited him to sit down and inquired about his experiences over the years. Leah began to share his life in the past years, and Guan interjected with questions from time to time. The more he did so, the more ashamed Leah felt. Zhang Buku was gone. The pain in junior brother Gu's heart must have been no less intense than his, considering junior brother Gu also carried the emotional weight of Zhang Chuanqiu. And yet, junior brother Gu still comforted him. A divine exotic immortal spirit appeared on Li Ya's shoulder without him noticing. It looked at Guan, blinked slyly, but Li Ya missed this moment. The two brothers talked for a long time. Until dusk, Li Ya stood up. He looked at Guan and said, "I've come back this time just to tell you about this. Thank you, junior brother Gu. I won't give up hope. I'll cultivate even harder and will save Zhang Buku sooner or later." Determination colored his face, and his eyes blazed with fighting spirit. Guan naturally encouraged him. And so Li Ya left. He didn't exit through the window but walked down the stairs. Guan did not accompany him. Li Ya stopped in front of the blood prison great saint, turned to look at it and said, "Oxhead, I swear I won't let anyone I care about end up in danger again. And your master, I will protect him too." With those words, he leaped into the sky and vanished into the horizon. The blood prison great saint rolled its eyes and muttered, "Crazy in the head. Who's protecting who? And why are you telling me? Am I your father?" A month after Li Ya's departure, another person returned. It was the monk Shinxinzi. He made his way to the third medicine valley. He paused at the entrance to the valley, somewhat dazed by the sight of its inhabitants sweeping, watering the soil, playing Go, painting and playfully chasing each other. Everything seemed so harmonious. For some reason, the moment he returned here, Shinxinzi inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. The gloom in his heart began to dissipate. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the valley. Soon after he saw Yuanying. She saw him too and instinctively wanted to avoid him, but he sent her a message asking her to halt. Shinxinzi approached her with a serious expression. Yuanying nervously asked, "What do you want?" "I haven't harmed anyone." Shinxinzi closed his eyes and said, "Amitabha benefactor, the monk has come to apologize. I was indeed rash and overly stubborn and judgmental before. It's true that everyone in the world may accuse you, but this monk cannot. I apologize. Henceforth I will not bother you again." He put his palms together and bowed in apology. Yuanying was stunned and rather perplexed. Before she could ask any questions, Shinxinzi turned and left. Watching his retreating figure, Yuanying muttered to herself, "What has he been through these years? Feels like he's been struck down." She had always been quite afraid of Shinxinzi, but after hearing his words just now, she strangely felt sympathy for him, rather than joy for her own sake. Shaking her head, she decided not to dwell on it any further. Whatever the case, she had to stay away from that monk. What if he went crazy again one day? Shinxinzi arrived at the Go-playing area, where still dozens of people gathered. He saw the Valley Master Guan approaching and nodded to each other as a greeting. Then they stood behind the crowd to watch the game. Suddenly, Shinxinzi had a notion and looked towards Guan. Stepping towards him, he whispered, "Valley Master, might I have a word in private?" Guan glanced at him, then nodded. "Let's talk in my room," Guan said. Shinxinzi had sacrificed himself to save Li Ya and the whole town, which improved Guan's opinion of him. Although the monk was stubborn, when it came to action he dared to face danger, genuinely caring for the lives of others, not just paying lip service. The nine-fingered divine lord who was playing Go noticed their figures. He smirked, withdrew his gaze and continued his game, exclaiming, "You really play a lousy game of Go. Even the country children outside the supreme sect could outplay this mess. No, let that cow play, it would do better than you." The blood prison great saint, who heard this from afar, was infuriated, but he held back. After all, Guan had once said the nine-fingered divine lord was an immortal who had just concealed his cultivation level. "Just keep playing. Better you don't cultivate anymore. Once I release my cultivation level, it'll make you my mount and turn you into a toad." The blood prison great saint thought to himself, and this brought him pleasure. He immediately cheered up. Elsewhere, Guan led Shinxinzi upstairs. Shinxinzi took the initiative to close the door. After inviting him to sit down, Guan began making tea. While waiting, Shinxinzi looked around at the multitude of books in the room, even noticing his favorite Journey to the West. Having Journey to the West, there made him feel even more favorably towards Guan. Guan placed the hot tea in front of him, then sat down, smiling and asked, What brings Taoist friend to seek a discussion? Shinshinzi took a deep breath and said, Benefactor, it's like this. I have a good friend who has spent his life detesting evil and seeking to vanquish demons to save the suffering masses. However, he suddenly discovered he was a reincarnation of a demon. What should he do? Classic, I have a friend scenario. Guan pondered and said, Is the relationship between past and present lives so important? What sin cannot be washed away even through reincarnation? Why should he fret? Why not just continue walking the path he believes in? But he truly is a demon, Shinshinzi began. So what? Are demons absolutely bad and are humans definitely good? Do you really think you should distance yourself from this friend? Taoist friend, if that's the case, then I have to speak up. It's disappointing that monks who have supposedly transcended worldly matters are so caught up in appearances. Guan began an impassioned critique of Shinshinzi. His inclination to give advice had been thoroughly roused. Shinshinzi did not get angry and listened intently. Guan, who had invented the game of Go, must have extraordinary insight, and Shinshinzi had previously felt that Guan's perspective on life was truly open-minded. His moral standing was undoubtedly higher than his own. Cultivation isn't all about increasing one's cultivation level. Guan talked for a while, feeling refreshed once he had finished. It didn't matter to him whether Shinshinzi took the advice to heart, he simply felt good about having aired his views. Shinshinzi, deep in thought, asked, If one lays down the butcher's knife, can they truly become a Buddha on the spot? Guan replied, not without irritation, How can that be possible? That's just being unreasonable. Sins need to be washed away by good deeds. Besides, your friend has not done anything evil in this life and has even saved many people, right? Shinshinzi nodded, his previously furrowed brows finally relaxing. He began to ponder. Guan did not disturb him and simply picked up a book to read. The room fell into silence. After a full half of an ancient hour, Shinshinzi stood up, bowed to Guan and said, Amitabha. Thank you, benefactor, for resolving my doubts. Guan waved his hand and said, What's there to thank for? If you really want to express gratitude, find time to guide the disciples of my valley in their cultivation. Shinshinzi did not refuse, and inwardly he felt moved. Guan was truly a profound being, always considering others. He asked, Benefactor, I see you have many books in your room. May I take a look at one? Upon hearing this, Guan began looking around. Shinshinzi suggested, How about the book in your hands, lend it to this monk to study? Guan's expression changed instantly, and he closed the Supreme Secret Records and said, Not this one. Chapter 282 Reincarnation of the Great Fortune of Energy Movement. Out of respect for social interaction, Shinshinzi had refrained from using his divine sense, so he was unaware of the content of the book in Guan's hands. Even when Guan refused him, he did not entertain any impolite thoughts. He inquired why, and Guan replied that Buddhism's sect did not deem it suitable to read secular books, and then he handed Shinshinzi a copy of Righteous Path and Demon Path. Righteous Path and Demon Path told the story of how Sword Venerable Fudao inscribed the characters for Righteous Path at the Heavenly Repair Platform, revealing the dark secrets of the Supreme Sect. Instead of tarnishing the Supreme Sect's reputation, the book made more people aware of the sect's pursuit of righteousness, encouraging them to actively correct their errors. Although the book was not as popular as Journey to the West or Investiture of the Gods, many within the sect still favored it, studying it repeatedly. Shinshinzi took the book, and upon seeing the title on the cover, his interest was piqued. He thanked Guan and left. After he left, Guan finally took out the Supreme Secret Records, and continued reading. He found it difficult to concern himself with the troubles of others' lives. When asked, he would speak his true thoughts without imposing. He had his own life to live, why worry more than necessary? Guan liked to consider himself an observer in others' lives, acting as he pleased, but without becoming overly fixated, lest it turn into regret. After arriving at the Third Medicine Valley, Shinshinzi decided not to leave, and Guan did not turn away this 9 layers wandering immortal realm great cultivator. Today's Third Medicine Valley was undoubtedly the strongest place in the Supreme Sect. Even on the continent, with Shinshinzi and Nine-Fingered Divine Lord there, Guan was not concerned for the safety of Medicine Valley and was more at ease when venturing out. 5 years passed quickly. That year's summer was not as hot as previous ones. Guan descended the stairs and saw many cultivators flying across the sky. This year, the Supreme Sect was preparing to host another alchemy conference, and it promised to be lively. Guan also planned to go and enjoy the bustle. After descending the stairs, he rode off on the Blood Prison Great Saint. Just as the Blood Prison Great Saint stood up, Ji Xiaoyu caught up. Seeing this, Guan had no choice but to dismount and pat the back of the Blood Prison Great Saint, saying, "You're free to roam around today." With Ji Xiaoyu present, it wasn't appropriate for Guan to ride a mount. Both of them riding together? What would that look like? Guan valued his reputation and integrity. The Blood Prison Great Saint left with a joyful expression, and Ji Xiaoyu asked, "Why not continue to ride?" Guan rolled his eyes at her and said, "I was already riding it, and you came to find me, obviously wanting to follow. If that's the case, I can only bring you along." This girl was playing coy, just trying to gauge his thoughts. Sure enough, upon hearing his words, Ji Xiaoyu's lips curved into a slight smile, and a charming smile brightened her face. "Let's go. Let's take a stroll around the outer gate city." "Okay." The two of them leapt up and flew towards the outer gate city. 30 minutes later, Guan and Ji Xiaoyu arrived below the heavenly repair platform. Looking up, the platform was swarming with people, a magnificent sight. Guan felt the presence of many in the immortal path realm, and although his days passed year by year in sameness, the supreme sect was growing stronger each year. It was said that the Hall of Elders in the sect had changed a lot of members, and the overall cultivation realm had elevated. Clan families within the gate would recruit cultivators from overseas, so those who stepped down were not suppressed. Instead, they became stronger and gained greater benefits. As Guan surveyed the scene, he employed lifespan detection. He liked to see the maximum lifespans of people, something even divine immortals of wondrous dharma could not detect. Ji Xiaoyu initiated, "I heard you know another Ji Xiaoyu?" Guan responded, "Yes, the third miss I mentioned before." "Is she me?" Ji Xiaoyu suddenly asked. Guan looked at her in surprise. Had the girl already awakened past life memories? Ji Xiaoyu explained, "I've had my name since birth, and I feel a strong identification with it, unlike a habit acquired later in life. Plus, not long after that Ji Xiaoyu died, I was born. The first time I met you, I felt a closeness to you, and coincidentally, you knew the other Ji Xiaoyu. I don't think it's a coincidence." With a steady gaze, she looked at Guan, waiting for his answer. Guan couldn't help but raise his hand to touch her forehead, then retracted it and spoke softly, "You don't have a fever, do you?" Ji Xiaoyu glared at him and said, "I'm serious." Guan spread his hands helplessly, "Why are you asking me? I'm just a core formation realm cultivator. Can I see through reincarnation? But since I've known you, you don't seem curious about my name. That's because I was shocked before you arrived. You can ask the vice sect leader." "Is that so? What else, miss? Even if it's true, I don't want to delve into it. If you truly are the same person as her, just thinking about it is frightening. What kind of conspiracies and vortices lie behind it? Me, with my core formation cultivation level dabbling in it, am likely to turn to dust." Guan spoke with a face full of fear, and as he did, he even stepped to the side. After listening, Ji Xiaoyu found his reasoning sound, but seeing his expressions and gestures, she couldn't help but feel both aggravated and amused. "Brother Gu, you've arrived." A figure descended from the heavenly repair platform. It was Wu Ju. Wu Ju, now at the second layer of the divinity transformation realm, was a renowned prodigy of the supreme sect, cultivated with vast resources from the sect, exuding an air of confidence and vigor, a far cry from his timid past. Guan greeted him with a smile. Wu Ju looked at Ji Xiaoyu with a puzzled expression. Why has Brother Gu changed his female companion again? That's a bit too. Guan immediately introduced Ji Xiaoyu to Wu Ju, who suddenly realized, "You are the Ji Xiaoyu with the strongest talent from the Ji family in recent years?" Ji Xiaoyu nodded slightly, and once Guan finished introducing him, she wasn't too surprised. Wu Ju was merely a famous prodigy, but the Third Medicine Valley hid many great cultivators, and even the sect leader occasionally visited. Afterwards, Wu Ju exchanged pleasantries with Guan and then left. They had made previous plans to drink together after some time. But Guan knew they would probably miss that appointment. He indeed had time, but Wu Ju did not. He was either busy cultivating or on missions. For a talent like Wu Ju, cultivation could last for years. Guan watched Wu Ju's departing figure, reflecting inwardly that too much leisure was not a good thing. Wu Ju's maximum lifespan remained unchanged, just as it had been decades ago. Of course, with his current maximum lifespan of 7,600 years, surpassing the Mahayana realm shouldn't be a problem. Guan simply felt a bit regretful because he initially believed Wu Ju could compete with An Hao. Ji Xiaoyu noticed the regret in his eyes and couldn't help asking, "What's wrong?" Guan replied with a smile, "I feel a bit sorry for him. I think his achievements could have been even higher." "His achievements are not high enough?" "Without and how returning, he is already the supreme sex #1 prodigy," Ji Xiaoyu said, confused. "Haha, indeed." Guan said no more, leading Ji Xiaoyu to the heavenly repair platform. Miss Third once attempted to lift the heaven-cutting axe. "You can also try when your cultivation level is higher," Guan casually mentioned. Ji Xiaoyu became interested in the heaven-cutting axe. They made their way through the crowds, arriving near the axe. Zuijian was reprimanding someone at the moment due to the crowd. Someone had stepped into the axe's ceremonial area. The so-called ceremonial area was marked by Zuijian. Aside from challengers, no one was allowed to enter a certain range to show respect towards Sword Venerable Fudao, and his proposal was acknowledged by the Supreme Sect, necessitating careful consideration in their treatment of Sword Venerable Fudao. Guan's gaze landed on someone in the crowd. Stealing the 5 elements, heaven and earth, flying immortal realm 9 layers 0/0/0. Divine exotic ghost king. This guy was something else, with a very mysterious method of concealing his aura. Had Guan not used his divine sense to scan the outer gate city upon arriving, he would not have noticed him. Stealing the 5 elements appeared as a scholar, wearing a scholar's hat, holding a folding fan, indistinct among the crowd, displaying curiosity while watching others challenge the heaven-cutting axe, without stepping forward himself. Guan only glanced at him before passing by, so as not to draw his attention. Back in the divine exotic realm, he had seen stealing the 5 elements, who certainly did not have the subdued aura he had now. This fellow daring to come to his turf, Guan wondered about his motives. Was he here to investigate him? Guan was curious to see what he would do next. Before long, the alchemy conference was about to begin in the city, prompting many to descend from the heavenly repair platform and head for the excitement. The alchemy conference was held in various cities, like a regional contest, with the final competition being held elsewhere, using formations to display the event to disciples and cultivators in all cities. Seeing Guan, Zuijian cheerfully greeted him. His son Zuilin was a good friend of Guan's. Guan was known for his thoughtful conduct, leaving a good impression. "Care to try? Test how your cultivation has progressed recently?" Zuijian invited with a jovial tone. Guan looked at Ji Xiaoyu and said, "Any day is as good as today, and it's not a one-time opportunity. You go ahead." Ji Xiaoyu nodded, stepping forward toward the heaven-cutting axe. Stealing the 5 elements' gaze fell on Ji Xiaoyu, and all of a sudden, his expression changed, revealing some excitement, which he quickly suppressed. His fluctuating demeanor didn't escape Guan's divine sense, but Guan pretended not to notice. In the end, Ji Xiaoyu failed, but no one laughed at her. After all, over the many years, no one had ever succeeded with the heaven-cutting axe. After exchanging a few words with Zuijian, Guan left. As they stepped out of the crowd and into a more open space, stealing the 5 elements approached them rapidly. "Wait, both of you." Stealing the 5 elements called out, prompting Guan and Ji Xiaoyu to stop and turn to look at him, their eyes questioning. He stopped in front of them and greeted them with a salute, saying, "My name is Wu Xing and I have traveled here from overseas. I've seen quite a bit and can say I'm rather worldly. I noticed that this young lady carries exceptional chi fortune, no doubt the incarnation of someone with great fortune of energy movement. If you're interested, perhaps we could find a place to talk further." Hearing the word incarnation, Ji Xiaoyu frowned. She instinctively looked at Guan, eager to hear what stealing the 5 elements had to say, but wary of displeasing Guan. Chapter 283 Reincarnation Path. Emperor facing Ji Xiaoyu's questioning gaze, Guan naturally agreed. Then the 3 of them found an inn and sat down, with Guan choosing a spot on the 2nd floor by the window. He liked to chat in this spot while watching the bustle of the streets below. Stealing the 5 elements glanced at Guan and Ji Xiaoyu, then pinched his teacup, looked at the surface of the tea and said, "Although we are meeting for the first time, this young lady must have an innate Taoist talisman hidden within her. Speaking of which, you and I are old acquaintances. In one of your past lives, you had formed ties with me." After he finished speaking, he first glanced at Guan and then at Ji Xiaoyu. He was uncertain of the relationship between the two, so he spoke very cautiously. Guan understood his concerns and said, "Taoist friend, feel free to speak. She is very curious about her past life." Ji Xiaoyu nodded and asked, "How long ago was that?" Stealing the 5 elements revealed a smile and said with feeling, "It must have been nearly 20,000 years ago." 20,000 years? The faces of both Guan and Ji Xiaoyu changed drastically. Guan's expression was feigned while Ji Xiaoyu was genuinely shocked since the known history of the Ji family didn't even span 20,000 years. "Who were you 20,000 years ago, and why did you come to the Supreme Sect?" Ji Xiaoyu asked cautiously. Guan could feel that stealing the 5 elements had already imposed a restriction, making it impossible for other diners to hear their conversation. Stealing the 5 elements answered, "To be honest, this trip to the Supreme Sect was specifically for you. I can sense that you have reincarnated again. In terms of status, I should respectfully call you a senior. If not for your intervention back then, I would have ceased to exist long ago." Talking about the past, his face was full of nostalgia, his gaze unfocused as if his thoughts had drifted back to the distant past. Ji Xiaoyu furrowed her brows and asked, "Why did I reincarnate?" Stealing the 5 elements said, "I only know you experienced calamities. You weren't forced into reincarnation due to hatred, and you can rest assured about this. No one in this world can do anything to you. I even consider you the strongest person I have ever seen." This genuinely surprised Guan because he had been to Divine Exotic City and seen stealing the 5 elements demonstrate his power. Knowing this, stealing the 5 elements still believed that one of Ji Xiaoyu's past lives was stronger. It seemed like the last time in the 7-star spirit realm, the innate Taoist talisman had not yet displayed its true power, but at that time, it had already been enough for Ji Xiaoyu to seek revenge. Stealing the 5 elements continued to speak about Ji Xiaoyu's strength at the time. In that lifetime, Ji Xiaoyu had called herself Reincarnation Path Emperor. The two had met only once, but due to Reincarnation Path Emperor's kindness, stealing the 5 elements had always wanted to repay her, only to find his freedom in recent years. He did not reveal his real identity, and the name Divine Exotic Ghost King was already known throughout the world. He also knew his reputation was not good. From stealing the 5 elements story, Ji Xiaoyu could only understand how strong her previous self was, and it didn't unravel the secrets of reincarnation. She looked at stealing the 5 elements and asked, "What exactly do you need from me now? I can't help you with anything in my current state." She was very cautious, worried that stealing the 5 elements might want to kill her and force her previous life to emerge. Guan had been listening silently, noting down the name Reincarnation Path Emperor, planning to investigate further the next time he visited Immortal-Seeking Island. 20,000 years might seem an eternity to mortals, but for great cultivators such as Wandering Immortals and Heaven and Earth Flying Immortals, it wasn't much, having lived through epochs preceding the fall of the Reincarnation Path Emperor. After a moment of hesitation, stealing the 5 elements said, "A catastrophe that will affect all beings is soon to erupt. When it does, many seas and continents will be destroyed, including the continent you are currently on, and I too am deeply trapped, unable to escape. The Reincarnation Path Emperor had a divine skill that could free me. Even if it meant undergoing reincarnation, I would be willing." Upon hearing this, Guan was somewhat surprised. From what stealing the 5 elements said, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm was likely to die. Why would an adversary of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm want to annihilate all living beings? He had previously felt that the appearance of the Divine Exotic Realm was not a coincidence, and clearly the Master was wary of something. Otherwise, with the Master's strength, he could have swept away any invaders. "But I am not the Reincarnation Path Emperor," Ji Xiaoyu hesitated. Stealing the 5 elements waved his hand and said, "You needn't worry. I'm not here to force you to help me now. When the catastrophe falls, no one will be able to save themselves. At that time, you will undoubtedly awaken your primal consciousness. Just remember me then." After hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu's brows furrowed even tighter. Stealing the 5 elements looked at Guan and said, "It is best not to spread the word about this. Not even the Supreme Sect or any major powers overseas can prepare for it in advance. It's better if the cultivators here enjoy their current lives unaware, lest the spreading news precipitate the catastrophe." Guan nodded and said, "I understand that principle. I just want to know how long until the catastrophe erupts. If it's a few hundred years later, then I am relieved." Stealing the 5 elements laughed, suddenly finding this core formation realm minor cultivator quite amusing. Ji Xiaoyu couldn't help but shoot Guan a look, but she had to admit, after Guan asked that question, a lot of her tension was relieved. It could be as soon as a few decades or as long as a few centuries. There are unimaginable powers at play behind the scenes. I can only say, when the oceans begin to rise, that will represent the arrival of calamity. Stealing the 5 elements answer caused Ji Xiaoyu to frown again. After speaking, he stood up and said, "Well, that's all I have to say. I won't disturb you any further." He raised his hand in a salutation and then left. Once he left the floor, the invisible restriction vanished. Guan turned to Ji Xiaoyu and chuckled, "You certainly have an impressive background. I might have to think twice before joking with you in the future." Ji Xiaoyu huffed, "Aren't you joking now?" After hearing his words, "What do you think?" "I'm not pleased. Although I had already guessed that I and the third miss you spoke of are the same person, I actually hoped my guess would be incorrect. Now, learning even more identities has only increased my displeasure." Ji Xiaoyu spoke calmly, her tone devoid of any emotional fluctuation. Guan looked at her, his gaze turning thoughtful. Normally, he subconsciously considered this live's Ji Xiaoyu and her previous life as the same person, even if their characters differed. In his heart they were the same. However, different memories and experiences had shaped a different person, even though the soul remained the same. The essence of being human is more than just the soul. Guan tried to comfort her. "If you are unhappy, then focus on cultivating, making your life in this incarnation last longer, or perhaps even achieving enlightenment." Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. "I can't achieve enlightenment. I will eventually die. The reason I cultivate is merely to make this life last longer and experience more. I often bother you just to enrich this life's experiences." She paused, then smiled and added, "Besides, you can only live for a few hundred years yourself, so why comfort me? Don't worry, even if I am unhappy, I am willing to accept this reality." Acceptance, huh? Guan chose not to probe further. He then called for the waiter and ordered a table full of exquisite food and drinks, shifting the conversation to the alchemy conference. Ji Xiaoyu's attention shifted as well, and it was as if the conversation with stealing the 5 elements had never happened. The alchemy conference eventually ended, and the cultivator who won first place was from overseas, a disciple of the Purple Pill Palace. It was the first time the disciples of the Supreme Sect had learned about Purple Pill Palace, an ancient alchemy sect that brought many alchemy techniques through this conference. Stealing the 5 elements, smiling, waved his fan. He was not afraid of the 9-fingered Divine Lord's suspicions. With his cultivation level, it was impossible for the Divine Lord to see through him. In the entire Supreme Sect, there was only one person he feared, Sword Venerable Fudao, who seemed to have accepted him as long as he did not cause trouble. "I lost." The 9-fingered Divine Lord inhaled deeply and declared gravely. He had lost to stealing the 5 elements 6 times and felt utterly humiliated. The surrounding crowd cheered, exacerbating his depression. Stealing the 5 elements stood up and laughed. "To celebrate this victory, how about I teach everyone a spell for close combat?" The disciples were even more delighted, their cheers drawing the attention of other disciples from afar. Chapter 284. Zhang Buku becomes a disciple. Seeing that stealing the 5 elements was willing to teach the disciple sorcery, Guan was secretly pleased. This guy knew his way around people, far more so than the 9-fingered Divine Lord. As the number of Medicine Valley disciples increased, Guan's distance from them grew ever larger. Despite being called master and disciple in name, they didn't share that true relationship. Even so, Guan still hoped they would have a better life and come across more opportunities for immortal cultivation. Stealing the 5 elements immediately took action, and seeing Guan on the way, he greeted him. After they left, Guan went to the chess table and looked at the 9-fingered Divine Lord, smiling. "Shall we play a game?" The 9-fingered Divine Lord snorted. "No, find him to play if you dare." "Then forget it. He seems very powerful. I'm not sure I'd win, so I can't start a game so carelessly." "What do you mean you are sure with me? Have I ever lost to you?" "You..." The 9-fingered Divine Lord was so angry he wanted to slam the table and stand up. Seeing the smile on Guan's face, he understood that Guan was deliberately provoking him. Guan then asked, "By the way, it's been a while since you returned. Where is Chu Jingfeng? Aren't you taking care of him?" "Don't worry, he's doing well. He's in seclusion. When he returns, you'll have to look up to him." The thought of Guan being surpassed by his own disciple, even becoming a figure from another world, made him quite cheerful again. Guan sighed. "If that's true, that would be wonderful. I have no hope of becoming an immortal. If he can achieve immortality, then I would also know an immortal, and my life would be without regrets." The nine-fingered divine lord really wanted to say that he himself was an immortal, but looking at Guan's expression he felt ashamed. What was wrong with himself? Why was he being so petty? Guan noticed the change in his expression and cursed inwardly, "The old man still wants to rile me up, watch me retreat to advance." The nine-fingered divine lord began speaking about the sect where Chu Jingfeng was located. He had sent Chu Jingfeng to an overseas branch of a sect, which, although not as powerful as the Star Sea congregations, was still stronger than the supreme sect. Guan listened intently to his tale of the overseas realm. It was nearly evening when Guan returned to his attic. In recent days he had seen more and more heaven and earth flying immortals return, mostly near the sea-breaking rift. Clearly a great battle was brewing. He sat in his chair, concentrated his mind, and his primordial spirit emerged. The carefree primordial immortal could remain undetected and untouchable by all beings, and even the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma could not perceive it. Guan quickly snuck into the sea-breaking rift, where he saw more fighting figures along the way than before, with nearly every heaven and earth engaged in battle. He stepped into the largest heaven and earth, which was where the Master of Divine Exotic Realm resided. At the moment, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm wasn't fighting, but there was still the aura of another carefree primordial immortal lingering, a sign that someone else had recently left the area. Guan landed in front of a cave, dark with a faint sound of wind. He stepped into the cave silently, the wind passing through his immortal soul of wondrous Dharma without any obstacle. Walking through the winding cave, he arrived at a chamber where Zhang Buku, now a divine exotic resentful ghost, was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Lying across his legs was an axe, formed not from a Dharma treasure but from condensed divine exotic force. Zhang Buku's eyes were closed, his brow furrowed as if he was enduring torment. Although he retained his original soul consciousness, he was constantly enduring the erosion of divine exotic force, as it autonomously devoured the soul. This was a process that even the Master of Divine Exotic Realm could not reverse. Guan sighed at the sight of his painful demeanor. How distressed would senior brother Zhang be if he saw this? Guan transformed into a sparrow and perched on a nearby rock. He chirped softly and Zhang Buku opened his eyes instinctively. Upon seeing the sparrow he was stunned. "Is that?" Zhang Buku's face lit up with joy. Just as he was about to speak, the sparrow flapped its wings humanly, signaling him to keep silent. Zhang Buku immediately understood but remained excited. Though unclear about the origin of the sparrow, he was grateful to it. When he had been close to death, it led him to a cave where he found a demon core and learned a world-dominating axe method. He had always harbored dreams about the sparrow, but never did he imagine he would see it here. At this moment, Zhang Buku felt incredibly fortunate. No matter the origin of the sparrow, there was someone looking out for him in the dark. How could he not be happy? The sparrow suddenly flew toward him, but he didn't dodge. Then he felt a peck on his forehead, and a flood of memories poured into his mind, leaving him in a daze. Time was lost to him. When Zhang Buku regained consciousness, his mind was filled with the memory of cultivating a divine skill. Limitless freedom step. Murmuring to himself, even reflecting on the divine skill let him sense its profound and inscrutable nature. Perfect, now he could practice the divine skill to divert the pain in his body. To use the words of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm, he had to get used to the erosion of divine exotic force, or he would truly become a divine exotic resentful ghost. Perhaps the sparrow wanted to help him in this way. Warmth filled Zhang Buku's heart, and he suddenly felt that his pain was bearable.